Hearing this voice, Zhao Huai, who was thinking in his head, was pulled back to reality. There was a creepy feeling all over his body. As he looked up, he feared that a ghostly face would appear right in front of him. Even though he comforted himself in his mind that the other party might be a beauty. But no matter how he thought about it, it still seemed absurd. After all, even the most beautiful woman, transformed into a ghost, would have a face that could scare people to death. After all, the more beautiful the ghost, the more terrifying it is. Fortunately, after Zhao Huai raised his head, he did not encounter the scary face he imagined. The woman in white just gently turned around, her eyes staring straight at Zhao Huai. At this point, Zhao Huai also realized what she was digging, the woman's hand holding a skull covered in yellow soil. Could it be because of that thing? Zhao Huai suddenly thought of the human bone that the stupid bird had brought back. It's likely that it was because of that evil skull that he had such a dream. Afterwards, Zhao Huai finally saw the woman's face clearly, and his eyes were full of surprise. Unexpectedly, this white-clothed woman was not ugly. On the contrary, she had delicate features and was a quietly dressed beauty. Her long, black hair cascading down her shoulders was very clean. Her oval face was extremely fair, and at first glance, she had a radiant beauty. Is this really an evil spirit? For a moment, Zhao Huai was somewhat doubtful. However, he did not let down his guard, because it was not ruled out that the evil spirit could disguise its appearance. Have you seen my husband? The lady in white asked again. Husband? What husband? Zhao Huai frowned, not understanding what she was talking about. With his understanding of this era, the term husband seemed to be a title from the previous dynasty. In the Xia country, people mostly called their husbands lord or occasionally guanren. The term husband was a long time ago. My husband. I haven't seen him. Being asked several times, Zhao Huai became impatient and directly answered. But what happened next left Zhao Huai dumbfounded. The white-clothed woman before him suddenly clenched her thin hand, and the skull in her palm was instantly crushed. She then stood up. With an expressionless face, she picked up the lantern from the ground and slowly walked towards Zhao Huai's direction. The flame in the lantern swayed slightly. Well, it seems I shouldn't have answered that casually. Zhao Huai was stupefied for a moment, then realized the key point. If he answered that he hadn't seen her, wouldn't it anger the evil spirit? Carrying the lantern, the white-clothed woman walked slowly, her entire body drifting. Her white embroidered shoes stepped on the ground without making a sound, as if just brushing the surface. Her whole being exuded an extremely eerie aura that Zhao Huai couldn't quite describe. Reason told him that he should run now, but honestly, he didn't know where to run. This was a dream. Where could he run to? Zhao Huai felt the strength in his body. Although his true qi was gone and his belongings were missing, it seemed that the effects of his destiny were still in place. That is to say, he only had the strength of his flesh body left. Relying on the power of the peak ultimate's intention, he should be able to exert an explosive force of 10,000 pounds. Could he confront this female ghost head-on? In a matter of moments, the white-clothed woman had already reached Zhao Huai's face. Under such close observation, her quiet and delicate face, illuminated by the lantern in her hand, appeared incredibly real. It was as if she was not an evil spirit, but a real person. The white-clothed woman stood in front of him without moving, while Zhao Huai remained on guard. Have you really not seen my husband? The white-clothed woman's large eyes stared at Zhao Huai, bright and watery, and had a unique beauty to them. Zhao Huai thought for a moment, then hesitated. Who is your husband? The woman in white quickly replied, Lu Lang. Zhao Huai tried to avoid any unpleasant incidents, pretended to think, shook his head, sorry, I really haven't seen him. As soon as these words came out, Zhao Huai clearly saw the flame in the lantern dim and flicker. The bright moon overhead was quickly covered by a black cloud. At this moment, Zhao Huai felt an ominous premonition. There was only one thought in his mind. Run. Zhao Huai took flight, running with all his might, not looking back. About the time he had run a few breaths away, a heart-wrenching scream followed from behind. Husband! Where are you? His voice had already become somewhat distant. Zhao Huai had at least run 50 meters. During this time, that woman had not moved. Zhao Huai didn't dare to look back, continuing to run with all his might, but the scream still gave him goosebumps. Whoosh! An eerie cold wind blew past him, making Zhao Huai shudder. He stepped over the small stream again and had already run quite far. But the next second, the woman in white appeared in front of him, more than 10 meters away, inside a forest. At this moment, the woman's white robe was filled with a ghostly red glow, and the color of her dress suddenly changed. Even the lantern in her hand turned into a bloody red color. The originally beautiful face was replaced by a hideous one. Her mouth was like a gully, and her smile resembled that of a clown. The corners of her mouth cracked open to the point of her ears, with sharp teeth inside. Her slender fingers became sharp and lengthy claws, each as long as a chopstick. Zhao Huai immediately turned around and ran back, shouting as he ran. Damn it! How can I wake up from a dream? As he ran, the woman appeared in front of him again. It was as if she could teleport. Zhao Huai stood still, gasping for air, watching the slowly approaching ghost, a nameless fire rising in his heart. Come on, you want a head-on confrontation? Come. Zhao Huai clenched his fists, took up a stance, and prepared to strike. Evil spirit, take my punch. The woman in white slowly approached, showing no intention of dodging. Zhao Huai's body leaped, punching the air with a forceful whoosh, carrying immense power. With a thud, he landed a solid punch on her, sending her flying. But Zhao Huai didn't have time to celebrate, as the woman in white disappeared again. Just as he turned his head, in the next instant, a terrifying ghostly face appeared in front of him. At an unknown time, those 5 long, pale nails were gripping his hand. Zhao Huai raised his right hand, ready to strike again. But everything in front of him suddenly became blurry. With a splash, it suddenly shattered. Husband, what's wrong with you? An anxious voice suddenly rang in his ears. At this moment, Yu Qinghan's disheveled hair was draped over her smooth shoulders, her expression extremely worried. Her jade-like hands gripping Zhao Huai's hand, shaking it forcefully. Zhao Huai groggily opened his eyes and found himself lying on a bed with his wife in front of him. Seeing him awake, Yu Qinghan let out a sigh of relief and said worriedly, Husband, you scared me. What were you dreaming about? Your expression was wrong, and you even said go die? Zhao Huai sat up, holding his head and reassuringly smiled. It's nothing, just had a nightmare. When he sat up, he noticed something strange. There was a sharp pain coming from his arm. He lifted the blanket and saw 5 deep blood marks on his arm, silently bleeding. Looking at the injury on his hand, Zhao Huai was slightly surprised. The wound from the dream could actually be brought into reality, which means that this evil spirit could kill people in dreams. The question is, how did this evil spirit affect him? His mind had the protection of the insanity technique, so it was impossible for it to be invaded. If it were in reality, Zhao Huai was fully confident that he could easily deal with this evil spirit. But in the dream, without his cultivation and black ring, he couldn't even draw a talisman, let alone use his physical strength to deal with her, which was still a bit forced. After a preliminary judgment, this was definitely not an ordinary evil spirit. Instead, it was a powerful nightmare, with a strong resentment that was unmatched by ordinary ghosts and monsters. The problem was that the evil spirit had been quiet before and there were no rumors about it, but it just happened to find him today. This was bound to be the result of the cursed skull, an annoying rotten bird. Thinking of this, Zhao Huai couldn't help but curse again. Husband, you seem to be preoccupied. Yu Qinghan saw Zhao Huai's face change constantly, so she asked concerned. It's not that I'm preoccupied, it's just that I'm thinking about the nightmare I just had, Zhao Huai said in a relaxed tone, trying not to worry Madam. He then hid his injured hand under the quilt. At the same time, all of his true vigor gathered on his right arm. In a moment, the blood on his arm stopped and a scab formed. Nightmare? What did you dream about? You can tell me. Yu Qinghan's phoenix eyes were incredibly serious. Zhao Huai smiled helplessly, I dreamt that I was being chased and killed. I was about to teach her a lesson when Madame woke me up. Yu Qinghan listened and nodded, then asked perplexedly, why would you have such a dream, husband? I don't know, maybe I was too tired from cultivating? Zhao Huai comforted her, and as his eyes wandered, they caught sight of the discarded skull on the bedside table. It had been thrown out the window earlier but had somehow returned. I'll prepare some mind-pacified grass for my husband. Put it beside you when you sleep so as not to be affected by the heart demon, Yu Qinghan said slowly, looking at Zhao Huai's handsome side profile. Zhao Huai picked up the skull and held it in his hand. He turned his head and smiled, thank you, madam. The couple continued chatting until the sun rose, then slowly changed and got out of bed. Wife, could you watch over our shop today? I need to go out and take care of some things, Zhao Huai said with a mouthful of greasy, scallion-filled pancake. All right, husband. Please go with ease, Yu Qinghan agreed, feeding the goldfish in front of her with some feed. Good morning. Good morning. The mynah bird stood on the roof beam, tilting its head in greeting. Stupid bird, come here. Zhao Huai beckoned, gesturing to his shoulder. The mynah bird flapped its wings and flew directly to his shoulder. Zhao Huai casually grabbed a stack of yellow talisman paper and prepared to go out. He had to bring the mynah bird along to see what kind of demons and monsters were involved. In a dream, you can be arrogant, but in reality, if you dare provoke him, he'll let you taste the power of the five thunder execution. After Zhao Huai left, Pei Shengyun slowly walked down from upstairs, rubbing her eyes and yawning lazily. Sister, you're up so early today? Yeah, come and eat something to fill your stomach, Yu Qinghan pointed to the pancake on the table. I'll wash up first. Yu Qinghan naturally ignored her, instead taking out a few mind-pacified grass from her necklace pendant. She planted them in the corners of the bedroom and hall, using fresh soil from the backyard garden. I'll plant some in the garden too. She went to the backyard and saw a specially allocated fertile field in the corner of the courtyard. A clump of grass was planted on it, emitting a faint spiritual qi. Is this the spirit-gathering grass that my husband bought? I didn't expect him to have such awareness. Yu Qinghan smiled faintly. She then also planted the mind-pacified grass. Since her husband wanted to cultivate spiritual medicine, she would go along with him. After completing these tasks, Yu Qinghan prepared to leave unintentionally. She saw a beautiful flower blooming under the big tree in the middle of the garden, growing prosperously. Yu Qinghan couldn't help but step forward to take a closer look. Suddenly, she found that the grass here was thicker and taller than in other areas. It wasn't obvious from a distance, but up close, the difference was significant. Yu Qinghan was quite familiar with such a situation. During the battle across the river, at the siege of Lu Yuan, countless people were killed on the riverside, and the following year, the grass had grown over everyone's heads. Without hesitation, she gathered her true qi in her hand and smashed it down, causing a large amount of soil to splash out. Yu Qinghan saw what was in the pit, and her delicate eyebrows were knitted in concern as she whispered. This is... At this time, Zhao Huai was walking on the street, pondering the divination in his mind. Sorrowful tonight, her soul longing, as rain chills, mourning for the grave visitor. Does it mean that he should dig a grave? The spirit of fragrance and the grave visitor could be determined. The lantern woman in white was dead, and so was her husband. The fragrant soul must be the lantern woman, and the grave visitor must be Lu Lang. The first half of the divination was a love poem that expressed the lantern woman's deep love for her husband. The problem lied in how her husband died and who killed him. Finding out the cause of her husband's death might turn the misfortune into a blessing. The formation of evil spirits is usually due to resentment. The stronger the resentment, the stronger the evil spirits are. Once the resentment is resolved, the evil spirit will cease to exist. Zhao Huai's train of thought was very clear. The problem now lies in what happened between the two, but he had no clue about it presently. If this evil spirit is not resolved, he fears that he won't have a good night's sleep in the future. Being happy at night, but chased and killed in dreams? He felt uneasy just thinking about it. The key was the bone in his hand, which may be the skull of the lantern woman's husband or even her own bones. Jiao Huai walked through the crowd, and his ears caught the refreshing slogans. Believe in the Crow Immortal, blessings, and good harvest, free from disease. Join the Raven sect, receive a bushel of rice, the Crow Immortal will protect you, enjoy eternal bliss after death, and be rich and noble in the next life. Why is it them again? Jiao Huai looked at the Raven sect members, frowning. A large group of people in black crow robes walked past him. Their number had clearly increased significantly since he last saw them. Their eyes were full of fanaticism, as if they were truly infatuated with the so-called Crow Immortal. These cultists are so diligent, working from dawn to dusk? Jiao Huai couldn't help but comment. The leader of the believers noticed a young man on the side of the street who had been watching them. He was handsome and of extraordinary temperament, definitely a good candidate. I see that you've been watching us for a while. Do you want to join us? The believer walked out of the crowd and came to Jiao Huai with a slight smile. Jiao Huai was taken aback at the man's approach. Unexpectedly, the believer was very polite and gentle in tone, which was quite different from the rough image he had in mind. Jiao Huai shook his head, not really, I'm just curious why your number has grown so much. Although his words didn't contain any derogatory terms, it was clear that he looked down upon and discriminated against the cult. The believer didn't get angry after hearing this. Instead, he smiled softly and said, doesn't this show that our Raven sect has gained the approval of the majority of people? Join the Raven sect, live a warm and well-fed life, no longer troubled by the mundane, be guided by the Crow Immortal. The talented will achieve success and go to paradise after death. The mediocre will also be rich and healthy. This is a great trend, isn't it? I see that you are a very talented person. Why not join our sect? Together, we can lead the common people to a bright and prosperous future. The believer's words were very targeted, clearly tailored to Jiao Huai's appearance and attire. Jiao Huai naturally didn't believe the believer's nonsense. He never believed in such teachings, let alone joining them. Who knows what underhanded activities these sects were involved in behind closed doors. Thank you, but I'm not interested. Jiao Huai refused directly. That's a pity. The believer's face flashed a hint of regret, but he quickly resumed his smile and waved goodbye. Brother, may we meet again if fate allows. Early morning, the first sun breaks through the fog. The first Raven cultist of the Raven sect had wasted no time after bidding farewell to Jiao Huai, leading a huge procession, touring around the inner and outer city of Jianzhou again and again. Not a single street or alley was left untouched, all were covered. Thanks to the efforts of the whole morning, many people followed from behind, but most of them looked thin and yellow-skinned, dressed in shabby clothes, and seemed to be refugees. Only a very few of them were dressed more luxuriously, looking more normal, with interest and curiosity in their eyes. Please follow me. The leading cultist turned his head to face the crowd and smiled gently. He led the crowd through the streets to an open courtyard. This place was located on the border of the inner and outer city, with a spacious area. The courtyard was just the tip of the iceberg, as this was actually a mansion. This mansion included a courtyard, warehouses, an ancestral hall, etc. The original site was an ancient Taoist temple from a previous dynasty. The Taoist temple was overgrown with weeds during the time of chaos, leaving it to decay. After the Raven sect took residence and renovated, it finally regained its former grandeur. The cultist leader walked ahead, passing through the courtyard and arrived at an ancestral hall. Located in the center of the ancestral hall was a lacquered gold bronze statue of a crow-headed man stepping on a cloud, with 3 heads and 6 arms, standing more than 10 meters tall. The eyes of the crow head were sharp and looked forward, the human body was sturdy and strong, with the 6 arms wielding various weapons. This is our worshipped Crow Immortal. The cultist leader stood in front of the statue and performed a respectful ceremony, laughing as he explained. Dong. With melodic bell sounds ringing out, a series of prayers came from the depths of the mansion. Seeing the confusion in the eyes of the crowd, the cultist leader reassured them in a soothing tone, the ceremony is about to begin, and the saintess is leading the members of the sect in offering blessings. What ceremony? Who is the saintess? A man in the crowd asked curiously. The cultist leader smiled and replied, once you participate in the ceremony, you will become a true member of the Raven sect. As for the respected saintess, you will know soon. Everyone ventured deeper into the mansion, arriving at a main hall. The space inside the hall was vast, and a woman surrounded by Raven cultists in the center. The woman was dressed in a loose black robe adorned with silver raven patterns, with a circle of copper bells on her bare left foot. She wore a white veil, with silver hair faintly visible through the robe. Even with the veil on, her stunning eyes were breathtaking. This is our respected saintess, who has come all the way from the capital city to preside over the ceremony. The cultist leader introduced with a smile. The woman known as the saintess glanced at the crowd, who were wearing expressions of astonishment, and spoke. Welcome to the Raven sect, from now on, we are a family. Her voice was slightly hoarse but not cold, instead, it was very gentle and courteous, like a spring breeze engulfing the listener, seemingly having the power to bewitch one's heart. Upon hearing her voice, everyone's heart calmed down, and some men in the crowd were even directly infatuated, their eyes fixed on her, unwilling to let go. After finishing her words, the woman at the center turned back, looking to the other side. There was a long table over 10 meters long, laid out with a variety of dishes. Steaming rice, roast whole pig, steamed fish, roast duck with soy sauce, barbecued venison, and countless fruits and desserts. Some people were already feasting at the table, grabbing a leg of a goose and crudely tearing into it, eating with oil all over their faces. These people were clearly the same as those brought in from outside. The refugees in the crowd, their stomachs rumbling in hunger, were swallowing hard as they looked at the feast, their eyes full of envy and fear toward the dark-robed cultists surrounding them. Seeing their expressions, the woman in the center revealed a knowing smile and gently said, "Go ahead, after eating, the ceremony will officially begin." Upon her words, a large number of hungry refugees could no longer hold back, rushing towards the feast like madmen, running fast and starting to enjoy their meal. At this time, the cultist leader approached the saintess and respectfully said, "Respected saintess, there should be enough people this time." "Not enough," the black-robed woman said emotionlessly. "The more people, the better. Lord Crow Immortal needs even more faith. Forgive my ignorance, but how can so many people be useful now? I'm afraid these refugees can't generate much power." After hearing this, the black-robed woman said indifferently, "You haven't been in the sect for long, so it's normal for you not to know some things. These refugees are of great use to us. Whether it's the power of the Crow Immortal or the perpetuation that can overthrow the fortune of the Xia, these refugees are indispensable. In other words, they are the source of our strength." The cultist leader had a better understanding after listening. With great devotion, he looked at the crow totem above his head and said reverently, "Lord Crow Immortal helped me break through my realm. Without him, there would be no me today." The black-robed woman didn't look at him again but asked one of the cultists by her side, "Is everything ready for the ceremony?" "Respected saintess, everything is ready." The cultist nodded vigorously. After a long time, when the people devouring their food almost finished, the table was swept clean with shiny plates. "Let the ceremony begin." At the command, the raven cultists around scattered, guiding the crowd to the center of the main hall. Many people looked around curiously, wondering what the ceremony was about. The black-robed woman's body exuded a faint silver chi, and the surrounding air suddenly became cold. In the dim main hall, her body slowly rose, like a rising sun. Her eyes flashed with a hint of dark blue light, and she shouted, "Activate the formation." An unparalleled brilliance erupted from the ground in the main hall, revealing the intricate formation engravings. Everyone gazed at the crow totem above their heads in awe. They stood inside like mere ants. A massive ball of light floated in midair at the center of the main hall. Within its dazzling glow, a faint silhouette of a crow seemed to appear. After the formation was activated, invisible faith energies were drawn out from their bodies and entered the luminous crow totem. At this moment, the raven cultists dared not make a sound, kneeling on the ground and praying devoutly. Then the black-robed woman recited an incantation, initiating the second phase of the mysterious ceremony. One blue light orb after another entered the people's bodies, causing great changes. My head hurts. It feels like something got in. My whole body is itchy. What's growing on me? What's happening to me? The crowd began to wail and moan in pain. Complex markings grew on each person's body, forming the shape of a crow when connected. Each of them was marked with the raven's imprint. The symbols on their skin flashed, and their eyes all changed. Their muscles bulged inexplicably, and their veins popped out, as if their entire bodies had been greatly enhanced. This was another means of the Raven sect exchanging life for faith. Burning their life force to gain power. After a long while, the ceremony ended. The black-robed woman looked at the transformed people below, nodded satisfactorily, and said with a smile, "Welcome, everyone, to officially join the Holy Raven sect." The people in the ranks, with fanatical eyes like they had been brainwashed, shouted loudly. "Believe in Lord Crow Immortal. Destroy the Nia. Seize the land." At this moment, Zhao Huai was following the myna bird which had a skull in its beak, leading the way, as if it were a compass. Now he understood why it took the bird so long to return in the first place. Jinzhou is a big city and it would take time to travel there. Leaving aside the time to leave the city, coupled with the rugged mountain road, it's indeed far. However, luckily for Zhao Huai, he knew how to use sword control for flight, saving a lot of time. But this is the geographical position of Jinzhou, backed by the sea, a big river passing through. Once out of the city, there were countless towering mountains nearby. Zhao Huai went out of the outer city of Jinzhou and came to the mountains near the city. Backed by the endless jungle mountains and into the jungle, he couldn't continue to fly. What lay before him was a winding mountain road that stretched deep into the jungle, with no end in sight. Today, Zhao Huai was in a black robe, wearing a bamboo hat, with a myna bird perched on his shoulder. He took a step, and his body appeared on a tree branch. With a light stamp of his foot, he was like an afterimage, appearing on another tree. Traveling in this way, his speed was naturally very fast, and before long, a temple appeared in front of him. Hovering in midair, Zhao Huai couldn't help but mutter, "Is there really a temple here?" After slowly landing and going up the stone steps, he quickly came to a large temple with rubble and vermilion wall. The sign at the front read Mingyin Temple. When he looked to the other side, he saw another road up the mountain, with groups of pilgrims coming in and out. 2 young monks at the temple gate were holding brooms, sweeping the fallen leaves at the gate. A confused look on his face, Zhao Huai glanced at the myna bird next to him and asked, "Is this the way you led us to? You couldn't possibly lead us astray, could you?" The myna bird tilted its head to look at him and said nothing, but continued to fly into the temple with the skull in its mouth. Zhao Huai followed it into the temple. He was walking very fast and the monks sweeping around didn't notice him. After entering, there was a large courtyard in front of him with the Buddha's copper statue at the furthest end, visible at a glance. Zhao Huai stopped a young monk who was passing by and asked, "Excuse me, sir. Do you know about any eerie places in the temple recently?" What he wanted to find now was the location of the lantern woman. Maybe the monks here could know something. The young monk folded his hands respectfully and said seriously, "Eerie? Sir, you might be mistaken. This is a pure and peaceful place of Buddhism. How can there be anything eerie? If you really want to talk about eerie, there is indeed something going on near the temple lately. For the specifics, you should ask the abbot. He knows more than us." After the monk explained, he left. Zhao Huai nodded his head and continued to follow the myna bird. Upon reaching the prayer hall, the bird didn't stop but continued to fly towards the back hill of the temple. So it's not in the temple, huh? Zhao Huai had a slight realization and was about to call the bird back when he saw a familiar girl in a green skirt and an old monk with a white beard, walking shoulder to shoulder out of the side door. "Miss Liu?" Zhao Huai asked in surprise. The woman in front of him was none other than Wanqiu, a disciple from the inner sect of the Immortal Yearning sect, wasn't it? Her long legs were as white and straight as ever. At this moment, Wanqiu seemed to be seriously saying something to the old monk in the cassock. Suddenly, she noticed that someone was staring at her. She moved her gaze and met Zhao Huai's eyes. Seeing Zhao Huai, Wanqiu smiled politely and said, "It's young Master Zhao. It's been a long time since we parted after the fox demon incident. Miss Lu, is this young man also here to deal with the evil spirit?" The old monk with the white eyebrows smiled and asked immediately. "Abbot, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. It was young Master Zhao who saved my life last time, and I was able to turn danger into safety. We're just friends, not fellow disciples." Facing the two, Zhao Huai's expression remained unchanged. He smiled slightly and said, "I just came to the temple to burn incense. I didn't expect to see you here, Mississippi." "Indeed, it is quite a coincidence," Wanqiu replied with a smile. "Boss Zhao, this is the Abbot Mingguang of the Mingyin Temple." Wanqiu introduced from the side. Zhao Huai and Abbot Mingguang both nodded at each other in acknowledgement. "Did I hear you just mention the term evil spirit?" Zhao Huai hadn't forgotten the conversation the two of them just had and calmly asked. When a sect disciple is involved, there must be signs of demons. At the mention of the evil spirit, Wanqiu's expression became noticeably serious as she nodded. "Yes, there's been a very powerful evil spirit near the spiritual mine that our Immortal Yearning sect is overseeing the excavation of. It's said that it can kill people in their dreams. The victims go to sleep and never wake up. Many miners have been brutally murdered." Upon hearing this, Zhao Huai was reminded of the tough man who bought the coffin not long ago. Wasn't he a worker in the spiritual mine? He mentioned that every time someone came home at night, passing through a hillside, they would suddenly die the next day. So, it was the work of the Lantern Woman. At this thought, Zhao Huai seemed to understand where the skull came from. Could it be that the skull was dug out from the spiritual mine? Initially, everything was peaceful. But due to the digging of the spiritual mine, a grave was disturbed, and the skull was thus carried back by the miner bird. Ba. Abbot Mingguang recited the Buddha's name, saying with regret, "The evil spirit, after all, was once a pitiful human being. Aren't all demons ruthlessly cruel? How could they be pitied?" Zhao Huai asked curiously. He sensed that this abbot was not an ordinary person. He must know some inside story about the Lantern Woman. Abbot Mingguang slowly began, "The story of this evil spirit has been passed down for a long time. It's an old tale that few know nowadays. I only heard of it when I was a child, from a monk in the temple. Several hundred years ago, there was no temple here, and Jianzhou was not called Jianzhou. Under the reign of Yan country, this evil spirit was originally an elegant young lady from a prominent family in the state. One day, she sneaked out and happened to meet a destitute scholar. The two quickly fell in love. But her father was against their love, and she had a fierce argument with him. Instead, she took her dowry and eloped with the scholar. The couple found a mountain and lived in seclusion, living happily and promising to grow old together. After a long time though, the scholar got bored and decided to take the imperial examination. The woman was very supportive and spent their money to help him study. Years later, when the scholar went to the capital city to take the exam, the woman spent all their savings for his travel expenses and saw him off. However, things did not go as planned. Once the scholar left, he sent no word back home, no letter, not even when the exam results were posted. One late night, she went out with a lantern, leaving the mountain to look for her husband. But she never found him and ended up dying on the mountain. Her longing eventually turned into obsession, and she transformed into an evil spirit. Having heard the tale, Zhao Huai fell into deep thought. The story was not innovative, rather, it was too common and cliché. He had heard many such ancient tales before. Was this an evil spirit from hundreds of years ago? This was indeed a big fish he had caught. No wonder she was so powerful. However, Zhao Huai saw some discrepancies in the story. He could understand the Lantern Woman searching for her husband. But why did she become an evil spirit? Search, this was a virtuous thought, which shouldn't transform into an evil spirit. But her frightening appearance didn't seem to fit the typical traits of an evil spirit. This hinted that there must have been intense resentment that augmented her power and turned her into a nightmare. At that moment, Zhao Huai habitually tossed a copper coin to see the result. The long-awaited result was finally out. The hexagram changed for the first time. Hexagram 1, tonight's longing should settle, the cold rain mourns for the spirit at the gravesite, to dissipate resentment, your instruction is blessing. Huai's pawnshop. Sister, where are you? After finishing her washing, Pei Xiangyun changed into new clothes and looked around the room for her sister. Finally, she spotted her sister leaning quietly against a tree by the entrance to the backyard, not moving at all. Sis, what are you doing? Pei Xiangyun lifted her skirt and quickly walked over, smiling cheerfully. As soon as she approached, she was frightened by a pale hand on the ground, her face turning pale as she asked. What is this? Under the tree, there was a large pit with 2 bodies wearing black clothes. They seemed to have been dead for some time. At this moment, Pei Xiangyun was bewildered, not knowing why 2 corpses had suddenly appeared in the backyard. Yu Qinghan stared at the 2 bodies, remaining silent and her phoenix eyes incredibly calm. It seemed like she was deep in thought. Pei Xiangyun began to examine the bodies, and after a while, she exclaimed. How did these corpses get here? Sister, did you kill them? Yu Qinghan replied faintly, then slowly stood up, as if she had already gotten the answer she was looking for. Pei Xiangyun, having received a negative answer, quickly thought up a bold idea. Could it be brother-in-law? But she quickly dismissed that thought, muttering to herself. But it doesn't make sense. I heard you say that he's only just started cultivating, right? These 2 people have different muscles and bones than ordinary people, and their pubic regions have been opened. They must be cultivators. How could someone who just started cultivating deal with 2 cultivators? Is there another killer? Pei Xiangyun came to her sister's side, trying to see a hint of an answer on her face. But she was disappointed, as she couldn't find any clues in her sister's expression. Pei Xiangyun pouted and guessed, maybe these people were killed by brother-in-law. You don't know his true side, but in private, he might be a supervillain who came just for you, sister. My husband is not that kind of person. Yu Qinghan frowned slightly. In her heart, she had already made up her mind. These 2 people were very likely killed by her husband. Of course, there were also the possibilities of other people killing and dumping the bodies in the backyard, and her husband helping people to dispose of the corpses. However, considering the various coincidences before, her husband killing people seemed more consistent with the first guess. At the auction, the Shadowless Pavilion's assassin had appeared, and she thought they would go after her husband. But in the end, the assassin disappeared without a trace, and her husband was safe and sound. They even happened to meet each other on the street. Also, during the night, she had encountered a fox demon who disguised itself as her husband to deceive and attack her. But why did the fox demon disguise itself as her husband? In the brothel, she killed the fox demon and went through several twists and turns, only to find her husband suddenly appearing at the Drunken Flower Tavern. He even managed to mysteriously meet with the disciples of the Immortal Yearning sect, and their relationship seemed quite close. Finally, there were the corpses that had suddenly appeared in their courtyard. All of these were considered to be suspicious points by Yu Qinghan. Any of these incidents alone could be easily explained, and she might have a hard time noticing them. But when all of them were connected, wouldn't it be too much of a coincidence? Because any of these events weren't something an ordinary person could experience. Encountering any of them was already extraordinary. At the time, she might not have thought too much about it, since her husband's safety was the most important thing. The other details would inevitably be overlooked, but on closer analysis, things didn't seem so simple. Whenever there was trouble, her husband was always by her side. If her husband really was the killer, then he was likely a very powerful cultivator with a high level of cultivation. To evade Elder Diao's personal examination, his cultivation must be at least at initiation stage or above, not ruling out the possibility of golden core stage. That would mean his cultivation level was higher than hers. It was simply. Frowning, Pei Shengyun saw Yu Qinghan becoming lost in thought again and couldn't help but ask. Sister, if brother-in-law really killed those people, what do you plan to do? After thinking it through, Yu Qinghan's lips curved slightly, and she smiled faintly. I'll do what I always do. Pei Shengyun was instantly dumbfounded, not believing what she heard. Sister, if this were true, he hit his cultivation level and always stayed by your side. Is that important? Pei Shengyun was even more surprised to see Yu Qinghan's indifferent expression. She simply could not understand her sister's thoughts. Yu Qinghan pressed her lips together, looking at the newly opened spiritual medicine garden in the courtyard and the cozy surroundings. She stood up, toyed with the flowers under the tree, and whispered. Shengyun, you don't understand. He has always been who he is, never changing, whether he has a high cultivation level or a low one. In the end, all he wants is to live a peaceful life. That's enough. Yu Qinghan's thoughts were simple, as long as the good days continued, and her husband treated her well, that was enough. What else was there to worry about? Sister, you. Pei Shengyun saw her sister's complex expression and didn't know what to say. She could only think that her sister trusted her good-for-nothing husband too much. As long as it didn't harm her and life continued as it was, it didn't matter what cultivation level he had. She wouldn't bother with anything else. This attitude was too relaxed for her to understand. Bury them. Pretend nothing ever happened. With a wave of Yu Qinghan's slender hand, a strong surge of true qi emanated from her, and a large amount of soil floated up to cover the corpses. Soon, all the soil was smoothed out and filled back in as if nothing had happened. Whine. At this moment, an eagle hawk appeared in the sky, letting out a long cry. Is there important news? Pei Shengyun cried out in surprise upon seeing the eagle hawk. This eagle hawk was a spirit bird bred by the Pei family, specifically for delivering intelligence. If there was important news, it would report it immediately. Pei Shengyun read the letter and quickly knitted her brows. The imperial court has issued an order to mobilize troops, stating that they will transfer the southern army to garrison the West Pass and leave only a portion of the forces to defend the south. Sister, your troops have been reassigned. Pei Shengyun said worriedly. If they're reassigned, so what? It has nothing to do with me. Yu Qinghan continued to plant more spiritual medicine in the garden, sounding unconcerned. Pei Shengyun sighed. Sister, this means you'll never have a chance to return to the military. Even if your general seal was taken away before, the military system was still intact. There was still a chance to turn things around. But now, with this order, the invincible senior general of the 5 armies has crumbled. What was the emperor thinking? After hearing this, Yu Qinghan showed no reaction and picked up her watering can, slowly walking back into the house. Pei Shengyun watched her sister's retreating figure, her almond-shaped eyes filled with sorrow. She felt that it was time for her to leave. Since seeing Lu Wanqiu at Mingyin Temple, Zhao Huai only exchanged pleasantries with her for a while before bidding farewell. At most, he repeatedly asked Abbot Mingguang for more details of the story. Although both he and Lu Wanqiu were looking for the Lantern Woman, he didn't plan to cooperate with her. It was because he had too many secrets, and spending too much time together would only lead to chaos, so he deliberately chose a different path from Lu Wanqiu. Moreover, his current strength was at the peak of the mortal world. With the addition of his destiny of peak ultimate's intention, cultivators in the initiation stage couldn't match him. If he learned more magical powers, he might even be able to face old veterans in the initiation stage. Of course, he could only flee upon seeing a Golden Core realm cultivator, but Golden Core cultivators rarely showed themselves anyway. The spiritual minefield is ahead. Following the Mina bird, Zhao Huai gradually entered a vast area, with a big mountain behind him. At the entrance of the mountain, there was a cave. All kinds of transportation facilities were set up, and wooden carts filled with spiritual stones were on display. These were the crudest spiritual mines, not even considered inferior spiritual stones. They needed to go through a refining process to become spiritual stones. What could be seen at the moment were civilians pushing carts out of the mine, and the sound of work echoed from inside the cave. Spiritual crystal debris was scattered all over the ground, which was the impurities found in the spiritual mines. The grades of spiritual stones were clear. Inferior spiritual stones were commonly circulated among mortals and small to medium-sized sects. Well-known large immortal cultivation sect disciples received medium-grade spiritual stones as monthly stipends, making them generous spenders. Superior spiritual stones, occasionally seen in the hands of elite disciples, true disciples, and sect elders, were mostly used for cultivation, and a single one could make an ordinary person in the mortal world rich for half their lifetime. The highest-grade spiritual stones were extremely rare and not part of trading. Every interval in the distance, there would be a sect disciple in a white crane-decorated uniform hanging from a tree, with cultivation around the 4th to 7th stages of refining chi clearly outer sect disciples. They were responsible for monitoring the spiritual mine fields to prevent theft. This spiritual mine was the property of the Immortal Yearning sect, leased to the civilians of Jianzhou. It had been negotiated in advance with the governor of Jianzhou, which is why the disciples of the Immortal Yearning sect were stationed at key locations, restricting entry dy ordinary people. This was not a problem for Zhao Huai. He smiled slightly, concealed his qi, and then disappeared into the darkness. The gap of cultivation level was evident. Even the basic art of containing qi, the outer sect disciples couldn't find any flaws. Zhao Huai quickly snuck into the rear mountain of the spiritual mine, reaching the depths without making a sound, standing on a hillside and observing the bustling civilians below. 1,000 miles a day, 1,000 miles a day. The myna bird hovered in the sky above the rear mountain, continuously calling. It seemed they had reached their destination. Is this the place? Zhao Huai frowned. This place was very ordinary, and there was a deep mountain behind the spiritual mine. It didn't seem to have any special significance, especially regarding the tomb. He couldn't see it at all. There were trees everywhere. How could there be a tomb? What he found most curious was why the myna bird didn't pick up those rare spiritual stones instead of holding on to a broken bone. Whoosh! Suddenly, in the quiet surroundings, Zhao Huai heard the sound of flowing water. Following the gentle sound of the water, he slowly approached and saw a narrow stream flowing through the forest. Zhao Huai took a step and realized his feet were sticky. When he looked down, he discovered that it was mud mixed with water from the stream. In that instant, familiar feelings surged in his heart. Zhao Huai found the place increasingly familiar, as the memories in his mind began to merge with the scene. He was almost certain by now. This was the place that he had passed through in his dream, the small river at night. The only difference was that one was during the day, and the other was at night. Logically, if he continued walking, he should encounter a wooden house and then the woman with a lantern in a white dress. Following the impression from his dream, Zhao Huai continued towards the front. The magical treasured longsword appeared in his hand, emitting a cold and harsh light. The sleeves filled with thunder talismans were ready to be launched at any moment. As his hexagram changed back to fortune now, Zhao Huai's confidence grew, as it meant he was on the right track. His guess was right. The mining of the spiritual mine awakened the evil spirit sleeping here, causing the lantern woman to reappear. As long as he dealt with her, he could finally sleep peacefully. However, Zhao Huai walked for a long time and still didn't see the supposed wooden house, let alone the lantern woman. The road ahead became darker and darker, with intersecting branches blocking the sun, plunging the place into darkness. Only a few rays of light pierced through the gaps between the leaves, casting shadows on the ground. Rustle! There was a movement in the jungle, and a black shadow flashed by swiftly. Zhao Huai's eyes narrowed, his true vigor stirred, and the magical treasured longsword in his hand shot out, directly hitting the target. Suddenly, the surrounding trees began shaking, with countless vines whipping through the air. Looking around, there were hundreds of them. In front of Zhao Huai appeared a massive tree that would take 7 or 8 people to encircle its trunk. With a single leap, he dodged the vine strikes. The spiritual sword whooshed, like lightning, and immediately returned to its sheath. Zhao Huai grasped the sword handle, taking a light breath, and a sharp momentum suddenly emerged with a wave of chi spreading out. Swish! At the moment the spiritual sword was unsheathed, the sky-reaching sword light instantly illuminated the quiet forest. This sword was like a lightning bolt that tore through the night sky, breaking the darkness and lighting up the surroundings. After the sword strike, Zhao Huai stroked the sword edge and quietly sheathed it. Just moments ago, the wildly dancing vines that filled the sky all fell to the ground, and the deep forest was once again quiet. A moment later, the massive tree was cut in half at the waist, with a vast amount of green blood gushing out. This was the true sword-drawing skill. Steady and fast. Ever since Zhao Huai received the blessing of the sword skill genius and crystal-clear sword mind destinies, his sword technique cultivation has surged like the rising tide. The power of his sword-drawing skill has become several times stronger than before. In front of him, the 100-year tree monster could barely last a moment. Zhao Huai looked at the tree demon cut in half without any ripple in his eyes, even feeling somewhat annoyed. He couldn't find the lantern woman and ended up finding a tree demon instead. What a failure. Not long after, a strand of pure energy flowed out from the tree demon's broken trunk and entered his body. Zhao Huai felt extremely comfortable all over, as if he had just finished a bath, with his true vigor extremely active, his cultivation slowly increasing, saving him a month's worth of hard training. Zhao Huai suddenly realized it was the slaying demon destiny that slowly activated. His own offensive skills pose a great threat to demonic creatures, not only amplifying the damage, but also cultivating and growing by slaying each demon. Zhao Huai gently smiled. As good as the slaying demon destiny is, there are not that many demonic creatures to be found. One might not be able to find one even with the demon viewing eye open for a whole day. Fool, fool. The myna bird slowly flew down from the tree and landed on Zhao Huai's shoulder, its beady eyes moving around, appearing very clever. This fellow was smart. When it came to fighting, he was the first to run, the prime example of not being dead weight. You're calling me a fool? It's all the trouble you caused. Do you have the nerve? Zhao Huai vented at the myna bird. He then calmed down and thought quietly. He felt that there were two important reasons why the lantern woman did not appear. First, it could be the environment. Perhaps she could only affect people in the dream world and had no way of dealing with humans in reality. Secondly, it was a matter of time. It might only be at night that she can appear. Regardless, all of this was speculation. If only he could connect dreams and reality together, Zhao Huai couldn't help but think. Yes. Dreams and reality. Zhao Huai glanced at the scab on his arm, and an idea suddenly came into his mind. Since the lantern woman liked to kill people in dreams, and the damage could be projected onto reality, that meant she must have existed in reality too, only hiding in dreams. Why couldn't he bring her into reality then? It should be possible in theory. If the damage she caused could come to reality, there should be no problem in bringing her over. Zhao Huai thought for a long time about the feasibility of this idea. In the end, he felt it was worth a try. The only thing he needed to be careful of was not to anger her in the dream world. Zhao Huai observed that when the lantern woman was in her white state, she was harmless and wouldn't hurt people. But once the lantern turned red, she would enter a rampage state and start to kill. As a precaution, he had to set up an alarm to wake himself up. Zhao Huai looked up at the tree branches and thought for a while. Sleeping on the tree would suffice, any significant movement in the dream would cause him to fall off the tree and wake up, right? Very well, let's do it this way. Zhao Huai settled on a plan and decided to find a safe place to sleep. The first place he thought of was Mingyin Temple. It was relatively quiet there, with few people around, so even if he tangled with the lantern woman, he wouldn't harm any innocent bystanders. Soon, Zhao Huai was back near Mingyin Temple. After much deliberation, he chose a pine tree about 100 meters away as his sleeping spot. He also set up 81 thunder talismans around the tree. Suppression Thunder Talisman, Slaying Thunder Talisman, 5 Elements Thunder Talisman. No matter what spirits and demons there were, they would have to taste the power of the thunder spells. After making the necessary preparations, Zhao Huai was ready to enter the cream. Buortnat, NE also T00K a 100K at TNE result or TNE copper com toss. The hexagram still showed fortune, indicating that this adventure was worth a try. He leaned against a thin branch, remaining motionless, and slightly squinted his eyes. Before long, he entered the dream. In the dream, the moonlight was still dazzling, with layers of black clouds accumulating. Zhao Huai arrived at the familiar forest, now shrouded in thick fog. I'm back again. This time, Zhao Huai was well prepared and intended to deal with the lantern woman. He walked to the familiar little stream, but before he could see the wooden house, he saw a woman in white crouching by the stream. She was still digging mud, with the lantern on the side emitting a fiery light, but this time the location was different. Zhao Huai approached her from 10 meters behind, but she did not react at all, which puzzled him. Does she have no memory of me? Hadn't they met before in a previous dream? Had that been wiped clean? Ignoring his doubts, Zhao Huai slowly approached. The quiet lantern woman was digging through the mud, muttering to herself like a crazed lunatic. This time, Zhao Huai decided to inquire about the lantern woman's past and try to get some information from her. He cleared his throat and said, "Hello." Just as Zhao Huai started speaking, the lantern woman, who was squatting on the ground, stood up, and the lantern on the ground flew up into her hand. Turning around, the lantern woman walked step by step towards Zhao Huai, her eyes glowing with a faint red light. The flame inside the white lantern flickered unsteadily. "I haven't finished yet," Zhao Huai said, quite speechless. "Before I could even start speaking, she transforms?" The lantern woman looked eerily bizarre, her appearance no longer as fresh and beautiful as before. "Have you seen my husband?" Her voice became intermittent and hoarse, reminiscent of an angered roar of a large man. This time, Zhao Huai saw clearly how she transformed. Her mouth gradually lengthened and split open, her eyes shrunk like a contortion, and her fingers slowly grew long and sharp. Zhao Huai could feel a foul-smelling wind emanating from her, and he knew that if he didn't say something soon, the lantern woman would go berserk. Unfazed by the nightmarish scene, Zhao Huai smiled. "I think I know where your husband might be." Upon hearing this, the lantern woman obviously hesitated, her hoarse voice stuttered. Really? Zhao Huai nodded. "I already have some ideas. If you cooperate with me, we might find your husband. Before that, you should return to your original appearance." After listening, the lantern woman fell silent for several seconds, finally relenting. "Okay." In an instant, the lantern woman returned to her previous fresh, beautiful appearance, and the lantern turned back to white. Her white skirt fluttered, her eyes bright, and her smile radiant, exuding the elegance of an elegant young lady. Zhao Huai realized that he had found the right approach. Instead of constantly fighting, he might as well try to outmaneuver her first. "If I can find my husband, I'll do anything you want," the lantern woman said earnestly. "Really?" Zhao Huai raised his eyebrow. The lantern woman looked pitiful, gently nodding her head. "Then tell me what happened after you went out to look for your husband." Zhao Huai had a clear goal. If he could find the source of the lantern woman's resentment, perhaps he could effortlessly resolve the trouble. So it was crucial to learn as much as possible about her experiences. With her head lowered, the lantern woman thought for a moment. "I remember walking through the mountains for a long time, being very tired, and one night, it was so dark that I almost lost my way. But I was worried for my husband's safety, as he hadn't sent me a letter for 3 months. I gritted my teeth and persisted until I reached the state. Then, I discovered." As she spoke, the lantern woman's expression turned wrong, as if she was in great pain. Moreover, the flame in her white lantern swayed unsteadily as if it would go out at any moment. Seeing her like this, Zhao Huai realized he had finally hit a blind spot. If he could figure out what happened to the lantern woman after she arrived in the state and county, everything would be easily solved. "I discovered that my husband had betrayed me." Finally, the lantern woman uttered these words, but by then, her voice had once again become hoarse. Zhao Huai knew that things were not going well. At the moment, dealing with her resentment seemed difficult. Seeing that the lantern woman before him was about to enter a heated state, Jiao Hui hastily explained, "Your husband was Lu Lang, right? He did not betray you, you must have remembered wrong." Remembered wrong. The raspy voice of the lantern woman slowed, obviously lost in thought. Seeing the beneficial effect, Jiao Hui seized the moment. "Exactly, otherwise your mind wouldn't be devoid of memories. So you must have remembered wrong." In fact, he was stalling for time. From the betrayal just now, it was pretty obvious her husband had become successful and subsequently abandoned the lantern woman. Therefore, after her death, she turned into an evil spirit. This was the source of the resentment. But on closer inspection, several details could not be explained. The most important one being, how did the lantern woman go mad? The fragmented memories were obviously insane. Being abandoned, a normal response would be to confront the perpetrator, then being humiliated, and then going mad? This explanation seems somewhat far-fetched. If her husband wanted to cleanly kill her and shut her up, then the lantern woman would certainly not have time to go mad. She may not even have time to turn into an evil spirit. It may all be too sudden. Only a person carrying immense resentment when they die could be transformed into a mighty evil spirit. In other words, it requires a process. Jiao Hui felt a deeper truth lied behind. "Yes, I forgot, I cannot remember." The lantern woman muttered to herself, her eyes vacant. The red light on her body slowly faded as well, clearly shaken by what Jiao Hui said. With no memory of any betrayal, there was no room for hatred. In order to soothe the lantern woman, Jiao Hui decided to strike up a positive conversation. He thought for a moment, then asked, "What's your husband like? Does he have any friends, and what does he typically enjoy doing?" The lantern woman thought for a moment, then slowly said, "My husband is a devoted scholar, poor at making friends. His biggest hobby is reading at home while I watch him from afar. I enjoy watching him read the most, he looks the most serious and focused when he is reading." Towards the end, she spoke with some emotion. "By at home, you mean the wooden house we saw earlier?" Jiao Hui asked. "Correct. Perhaps we should go have a look, we may find some clues about your husband." Jiao Hui suggested, there could be crucial information inside the wooden house. "All right." The lantern woman agreed dazedly. Thus, Jiao Hui followed her, noticing that the way the lantern woman walked was rather peculiar. Although it looked like a normal walk, it seemed devoid of grounding, as if she didn't need to walk to move forward, as if she was floating, and the walking was merely an instinct from her life before death. Jiao Hui entered the wooden house. To his surprise, the house was entirely empty except for a bed, chairs, and tables, and books, all of which were covered in a thick layer of dust. There was nothing else. Just when he was about to leave in disappointment, he noticed a box under the bed. It looked suspicious. On closer inspection, he froze and exclaimed, "A coffin? Why is there a coffin here?" Under the bed was a coffin, which was undeniably small, or else it wouldn't fit under the bed. He suddenly realized that she was gone. He stepped out of the wooden house and found the lantern woman standing at the entrance, gazing in a certain direction without moving. A moment later, a beautiful woman with a long ponytail dressed in a green dress embroidered with lotus patterns, long legs and a slim waist came out from the middle of the road. She slightly squinted her beautiful eyes and slowly said, "So you're the evil spirit that's been troubling the spiritual mind for a while?" Jiao Hui was flabbergasted. He knew this person all too well, wasn't it Lu Wanqiu, whom he had just met earlier? But wasn't this place within a dream? How did she get in? Could it be the dream space of the lantern woman was an independent one, he suddenly realized. The eyes beneath Lu Wanqiu's willow leaf brows were filled with murderous intent at the moment. She was clearly here for the lantern woman. Die. Without uttering another word, Lu Wanqiu disappeared from her spot and charged towards the lantern woman. She wanted to call upon her spiritual sword to kill the evil spirit, but her face went blank in no time. She realized she could not sense the existence of her storage ring or even manipulate her true vigor. Staring at her palm, Lu Wanqiu's face was full of confusion. Indeed. Zhao Huai thought to himself that in the dream realm of the Lantern Woman, one's cultivation would be erased. This was obviously Lu Wanqiu's first time in the dream realm, so she was completely unaware of this. It was at this moment that Zhao Huai noticed the lantern in the woman's hand gradually turning red and brightening. No way, it's getting warmer again, Zhao Huai sighed helplessly. He had just barely managed to get his words out, but was then interrupted by Lu Wanqiu. His main annoyance was the unpredictable temper of the Lantern Woman, who would fly into a rage at the slightest provocation. Don't be reckless. I haven't found your husband yet. Zhao Huai felt he was close to uncovering the truth. When he did, the Lantern Woman would self-destruct. He was just one step away. So, where is my husband? The Lantern Woman's voice became icy, and her slender jade fingers grew longer and sharper again. You're lying to me, you don't know where he is at all. Whoosh! The lantern carried by the Lantern Woman had fully turned red at this moment. Her face became incredibly grotesque and terrifying, her eyes twisted and lengthened, the corners of her mouth split wide open, revealing a gaping bloody mouth, appearing like a fierce ghost. Run! Standing in the doorway of the wooden house, Zhao Huai yelled at Lu Wanqiu. Young Master Zhao? Seeing Zhao Huai who had shown himself, Lu Wanqiu was stunned. Unsurprisingly, she hadn't expected Zhao Huai to be here. In that instant, the Lantern Woman in her fury had already appeared in front of her, her claws ferociously stabbing forward. As soon as Lu Wanqiu sensed it, she reflexively retreated. But she was still one step too late. The Lantern Woman left a deep wound on her arm as soft as a lotus root, causing blood to seep out. Looking at the transformed and extremely fast evil spirit in front of her, Lu Wanqiu knelt on the ground, a serious look on her face. The Lantern Woman gave her no time to catch her breath, disappeared from the spot, and lunged at her again. An afterimage swept by, taking Lu Wanqiu's hand and just managing to dodge the attack. Master Zhao, you. When she realized the person in front of her, she was stunned. I'll explain later. Zhao Huai looked at the Lantern Woman standing still behind him, picked up. Lu Wanqiu leaped up and jumped into a tree. During their escape, Lu Wanqiu was amazed at Zhao Huai's speed. She had already found it strange that the Lantern Woman was very fast, too fast for her to defend against, yet Zhao Huai could dodge in time. If she'd not been pulled along, she would not have been able to keep up with him. This meant that Zhao Huai's speed, bursted from his physical body, was much quicker than hers. In other words, he was an extremely powerful cultivator. In fact, Zhao Huai, being augmented by the destiny of peak ultimate's intention, had a physical strength that was 4 times that of an ordinary cultivator, so naturally, Lu Wanqiu couldn't compare. Moving swiftly on the tree, Zhao Huai felt a chilly wind sweeping in. A disgusting putrid gust was wreaking havoc in the woods, the rustling sound of leaves and branches rustling could be heard in his ears. Since the plan to resolve resentment has failed, the only option left is the least desirable one. Zhao Huai had always believed that resolving resentment was the easiest and relaxing method. Otherwise, the hexagram wouldn't have shown this result. What are you planning to do? Asked Lu Wanqiu. To kill her. Zhao Huai answered impassively. Lu Wanqiu was slightly stunned. At this moment, she found the man in front of her becoming increasingly foreign to her. What should I do? I can cooperate with you. Lu Wanqiu quickly regained her composure and said seriously. Right now, the most important thing was to deal with the evil spirit, everything else had to be put aside. Since Zhao Huai was stronger than her, it was only natural to follow his lead. Attract her attention, and I'll be responsible for pulling her out of the dream. Zhao Huai explained calmly. Pull her out of the dream? Can that really be done? Zhao Huai's words were difficult for Lu Wanqiu to understand, or rather, she couldn't even think of it. Trust me, there's not much time left. This is her dream, not ours, so we'll be greatly limited here. Zhao Huai could clearly feel that the surrounding forest was closing in, and the road was getting narrower and narrower. It must be the doing of the Lantern Woman. He gradually came to understand that this so-called dream was actually an independent space. It wasn't that his dream had been invaded by the Lantern Woman, but he was pulled into the Lantern Woman's dream. I understand. Wanqiu nodded heavily and ultimately chose to trust Zhao Huai. Zhao Huai held her and slowly let go of her. Wanqiu landed steadily on the ground while he stayed on the tree, waiting for the right moment. He reminded her, "You must touch her body, or the plan will be difficult to succeed. You can attract her attention with her deceased husband. This tactic is very effective." Wanqiu nodded to show her understanding. As soon as the words fell, a cold, whistling wind came. A red figure slowly appeared in the middle of the road, her hair disheveled, and the fierce red light in her eyes revealed her boundless resentment. Looking at the Red Lantern Woman, Wanqiu couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. Her mood was undoubtedly tense. After all, without cultivation, one careless mistake could lead to irreparable consequences. "Come on. Aren't you looking for your husband? I think he's already dead." "What's the use of looking?" Wanqiu provoked the Lantern Woman. The Lantern Woman let out a sharp scream, almost piercing the ears. She couldn't bear others humiliating her husband. Zhao Huai covered his ears on the tree, not daring to let his guard down. His eyes were incredibly sharp, watching the Lantern Woman's every move closely. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the Lantern Woman disappeared from her original spot, turned into a fishy wind, and appeared in front of Wanqiu, lunging down with a claw. Wanqiu was prepared and leaned back in advance. The Lantern Woman missed. Seizing the opportunity, Zhao Huai jumped down and grabbed the Lantern Woman's pale, bloodless arm. How could the Lantern Woman pass up the opportunity to tear a living person apart? Her hair suddenly came to life and wrapped around his body. She also opened her bloody mouth and roared at him. Such great strength. Zhao Huai's face turned pale, suddenly realizing his arm was about to break. The Lantern Woman's strength was even greater than he had imagined, and it was still increasing. He had to hurry. "Wake up now!" Zhao Huai shouted at the sky. Now, his whole body was wrapped tightly by the Lantern Woman's hair. In the real world, strands of black smoke were entwining around Zhao Huai's forehead. He closed his eyes, his body twitched continuously, as if bound by something. The tree branch under his buttocks made a creaking sound, and it could not bear Zhao Huai's movement any longer. His whole body tilted to the side and fell straight down. Just at the moment of landing, the dream made a crack sound. The endless darkness before his eyes turned into a vortex and shattered instantly. "Where are you? I'll come to find you." At the moment the dream was about to shatter, Wanqiu shouted to Zhao Huai. "Find me near Mingyin Temple." Zhao Huai held tightly onto the Lantern Woman's arm and didn't let go. A loud splash sound came. The dream was over. Zhao Huai suddenly opened his eyes and leaped to his feet, grabbing the spiritual sword and feeling the surging true vigor in his body. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He had succeeded. And at this moment, a thick black smoke like a viscous fog appeared before his eyes, and it eventually condensed into the shape of the Lantern Woman. However, she was enraged and kept howling angrily. Zhao Huai didn't care. Instead, he sneered coldly. "Welcome to my domain." His tone was extremely calm, full of confidence. The berserk Lantern Woman let out a shrill scream, lunging towards Zhao Huai. Barely taking a step, numerous scattered thunderbolts appeared around the large tree. Powerful spiritual chi fluctuations swept outwards. Boom! 100 Thunder Talismans, including 5 Elements Thunder Talisman, Slaying Thunder Talisman, and Suppression Thunder Talisman of several kinds, all erupted simultaneously, and in a flash, the entire forest was as bright as day. Ah! Thunder magic was a formidable restraint against evil spirits. Great amounts of ghostly chi from the Lantern Woman's body dissipated, causing her to let out a miserable wail. Zhao Huai watched coldly, his hands not stopping. Another talisman was quickly inscribed, leaving intricate patterns on the ground that emitted a faint glow, suppressing the evil spirit within. This Lantern Woman had killed many people, and she had to pay the price. As the powerful thunder talisman suppressed her second by second, the black smoke around Lantern Woman grew weaker and weaker, gradually showing signs of dissipation. "Husband! Why are you doing this?" Even in such a situation, the Lantern Woman was still calling out the word. "Husband." The red berserk state was gradually fading, and she was back to her gentle white appearance. As the thunder talismans finished exploding, turning into ashes and dispersing, the Lantern Woman was suppressed under the tree, struggling with her last breath. Facing the beautiful fair-faced Lantern Woman in a white dress, Jiao Huai held the azure spiritual sword and slowly approached her, expressionless. I remember now." The Lantern Woman lowered her head, muttering to herself like a madwoman. Seeing her like this, Jiao Huai couldn't help but frown. It was me. Ha ha ha." The Lantern Woman laughed hysterically. Hearing these words, Jiao Huai seemed to understand something. His gaze revealed a trace of pity as he said, "Go, he will forgive you." Then, he raised the sword in his hand, darting it straight into the Lantern Woman's forehead, like a sung long. In the dense forest, a woman was flying on a sword, her eyes filled with anxiety. Wanqiu breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Linging Temple appeared before her. Soon, the figure of a man appeared in front of her. She leaped down and scanned around, discovering that there were no evil spirits, and then asked doubtfully, "Young Master Zhao, where is that woman?" "Destroyed." Jiao Huai replied indifferently. "Destroyed? So soon?" Wanqiu's eyes widened in disbelief. Such an evil spirit was not something an ordinary cultivator could deal with, and it had only been a short while. "I don't know what happened to her, but she was filled with boundless hatred." Wanqiu couldn't help saying. "It's a harsh truth." Jiao Huai sighed, and by now, he had figured out what had happened at that time. "It seems like the young master knows something?" Wanqiu asked curiously. "I heard from the abbot that this woman died in the mountain, and her resentful spirit was formed because she felt abandoned by her husband," Wanqiu said. She had collected quite a bit of information about the Lantern Woman and had her own understanding. Jiao Huai shook his head. "That's not the case. I spoke to her, and although she was lost in the mountains, she didn't die there." "Please elaborate." Wanqiu said helplessly. Just in terms of defeating the Lantern Woman, Jiao Huai was already stronger than her and obviously knew more. So Jiao Huai slowly recounted. The elegant young lady left the mountain and unexpectedly found her scholar lover in town. However, he had already achieved success and fame, changed his appearance, and become a popular figure. But he didn't come back to find her, so she was heartbroken and very sad. She felt that the scholar had forgotten his oath, so she went to confront him but got thrown out and couldn't even enter the house. So the scholar killed her to silence her? Wanqiu suddenly realized. I initially thought so too, but think about it, if she had been killed by the scholar, would she still go to such lengths to find him? Wanqiu nodded, indeed feeling conflicted. If the Lantern Woman was constantly looking for her husband, that meant her hatred was not directed at her husband. So there must be a twist, and the twist is that the scholar did not betray the Lantern Woman, Jiao Huai said solemnly. The scholar passed the imperial exam with the highest score and gained recognition. With numerous marriage proposals pouring in, he had his wife in his mind, but he didn't accept or reject any offers. He knew that once he rejected them, he could never make it in the officialdom in the future and his so-called fame would be nothing but a dream. Under various constraints, the scholar naturally couldn't find his wife immediately. If they discovered that he was already married, the outcome would be the same. However, the woman was unaware of this. She firmly believed that she was betrayed by her husband, and her hatred grew stronger, turning love into hatred. The deeper the love, the deeper the hatred. She sneaked into the scholar's mansion and killed him. Upon hearing this, Wanqiu raised a doubt, let alone how the woman entered the scholar's residence. It's a bit incredible that a weak woman with no strength managed to kill someone. Jiao Huai smiled faintly. You underestimate the power of hatred. Even if she had to sell herself and enter as a servant, it would be extremely simple. As for whether she murdered or not, I think the coffin in the wooden house can prove it. The coffin? Yes, I saw a coffin under the bed in the lantern woman's wooden house. It couldn't be for her, it must be for the scholar's body. Wanqiu was still puzzled. Why prepare a coffin for a revenge killing? Zhao Huai's expression was extremely serious. Because she found out about everything the scholar did, perhaps through his diary or through inquiries. She killed the wrong person. Then she went mad. After the woman killed the scholar, she greatly regretted it. But with the man dead, what could she do? She could only leave the corpse in the wilderness. In the state and county, the scholar's story started spreading, about how he kept his door closed and remained low profile after becoming an official. Many people found it puzzling. Finally, the trusted housekeeper revealed the key. The scholar actually had a beloved wife, so he refused to marry, always delaying and never meeting with the noble families. The woman learned this news, struck by a thunderbolt. Countless regrets flashed through her mind. She searched all night for the abandoned corpse of her husband. However, the scholar's body was already gnawed by rats and riddled with holes. Woman was devastated, loathing herself for not being able to accept the fact that she killed her beloved. Her hatred for herself reached the point of obsession. So she lost her mind. She put the scholar's body in the coffin and hid it under the bed. In this way, she could always be with her beloved scholar. She hated herself to the extreme and eventually committed suicide in front of the cotton. This hatred turned her into an evil spirit. After becoming an evil spirit, the mad woman chose to forget about her murderous crime and fell back into the grief of losing her husband. This is why the lantern woman has two forms. One is red, and the other is white. Red represents painful memories, while white represents normal, beautiful memories. After hearing Zhao Huai's explanation, Wanqiu was stunned. So the lantern woman killed her husband and then killed herself. The person she hates is herself? Exactly. Zhao Huai nodded. While there might be discrepancies in the details, the train of thought was undoubtedly correct. This poor woman. Wanqiu's eyes revealed sympathy. Zhao Huai pondered, actually, I still have a doubt left unanswered. What? Wanqiu felt as if her scalp was tingling at this point, as the story sounded terrifying. Of course, the man in front of her was even more terrifying, able to not only find a way to kill the lantern woman but also deduce the truth. Where has the lantern woman's husband gone? He must have already turned to ashes. It's been hundreds of years. Wanqiu said as a matter of course. Zhao Huai shook his head again. He clenched the skull in his hand, knowing in his heart that this bone was definitely Lu Lang's and not the lantern woman's. Rain chills the soul of scented flowers, and visitors are drawn to the grave. The essence of the word drawn in this hexagram phrase was used very well. Since the lantern woman was still seeking, that means Lu Lang still exists, whether it's his remains or his grave. Wanqiu was puzzled, but she's already dead, shouldn't it be over? It's probably not that simple. Come with me. Zhao Huai placed his long sword on the ground, stepping on it. Where to? The lantern woman's grave. The two walked side by side, arriving near the small stream in their dreams in no time. This is. Wanqiu obviously recognized the place. Zhao Huai's footsteps were extremely fast, and he quickly found the location of the wooden house. There was nothing here but dense vegetation. There was nothing else in sight. He activated the true vigor in his body, striking out with his palm. With a bang, a huge pit appeared in front of him. Zhao Huai squinted his eyes, and the skull in his hand emitted a red light. Slowly sinking into the pit. So that's how it is, Zhao Huai muttered, suddenly realizing. What? Wanqiu felt like a 3-year-old child, following Zhao Huai's lead. Do you know where Lu Lang is? Zhao Huai smiled slightly. Where? Lu Lang has always been by the lantern woman's side, but she just didn't know, and we have always overlooked it. Wanqiu frowned and tilted her head. That's not possible. There's nothing on her body. Zhao Huai pointed at the slowly rising red light and said. That lantern is her husband. Human skin lantern? Wanqiu was suddenly shocked, and the image of the woman in white holding a lantern involuntarily emerged in her mind. After listening to Zhao Huai's words, she understood. The lantern woman made a lantern from her husband's skin, so that he could always be by her side even after death. This woman is insane. She actually turned her husband's skin into a lantern? Even with her strong mentality, Wanqiu's face couldn't help but turn pale. Zhao Huai looked at the red spherical object in front of him and squinted his eyes. It's not a human skin lantern. The material of the lantern's outer layer is not human skin at all. I guess after the lantern woman killed her husband, she wanted to carry his body back to the mountain, but think about it, a weak woman, carrying a corpse through the wilderness at night, it's just too difficult. You mean? Zhao Huai tilted his head and said seriously, the lantern woman couldn't do it but couldn't bear to leave her husband, so she cut off his head and only took it back with her. So, there was no lantern at all, whether white or red, what she was holding all along was her husband's head. As the words fell, Wanqiu looked at the red glowing sphere in front of her. In the eerie red light, it was clearly a dried-up skull, with the exposed skull scattered and missing a piece, hanging in midair, looking shattered. In the horrifying red light, a ghostly face appeared, letting out a shrill scream, resembling the roar of the lantern woman when she went berserk. At this moment, Wanqiu realized that the reason for the lantern woman's unstable emotions was because she was influenced by the lantern. Her husband had also turned into an evil spirit, and he had been hiding inside the lantern all along. After all, if Lu Lang was killed by his beloved and his life's achievements were destroyed, how could he not hate her? Die! The ghostly face roared angrily, filled with resentment, and rushed towards Zhao Huai. In Zhao Huai's eyes, Lu Lang was not as formidable as the lantern woman. He remained calm, waved his sleeve, and a large amount of flowing blue arcs flashed through the sky. The thunder talisman was ready to be unleashed. There was a loud boom from the huge explosion, and the skull was blasted away. Zhao Huai held his long sword and walked in front of the skull while the dark blue sword chi shone brightly on the blade. Why did she kill me? The distorted ghost face roared with immense dissatisfaction. It was clear that Lu Lang was extremely unhappy with the lantern woman and overwhelmed with anger. Zhao Huai raised his sword and replied. Because she loves you. The thick sword chi converged and stabbed fiercely. The red light soon vanished. Zhao Huai said with a complicated expression, perhaps this is fate, they were destined not to be together because their paths diverged. The so-called soul-hooking gravestone guest has a double meaning, hooking the lantern and hooking people. Zhao Huai glanced at the copper coin in his hand and smiled lightly. The copper coin had told him the result from the beginning, but he had simply misunderstood it. At the end of it all, an orange light entered his mind. Another new destiny. Sword cultivator, Middle Earth grade, a lifetime of cultivating for a person, nurturing a sword for a lifetime, the ancient human race, only when the sword reaches its peak can one become a sword immortal. Nurturing a sword can greatly improve the connection with the sword, making it more powerful, and at the same time mastering the technique of nurturing a sword, its power can gradually increase. In other words, this is a destiny that enhances one's sword skills, and to increase the power of one's sword techniques is the most basic level. When the nurturing of the sword reaches its limit, boundless sword chi can be conceived, moving mountains and reversing oceans, breaking rivers and destroying cities will be easy, and no evil spirits can harm the sword's body in the slightest. To become a sword immortal, nurturing a sword is the first step. A sword cultivator? It's a bit similar to his sword drawing skill. However, it seems to be much stronger than sword drawing skill, as it has an additional growth attribute. Without any hesitation, Zhao Huai chose to merge with it. At the moment of merging with the destiny, he felt an additional stream of sword skill essence in his mind, as thin as a chopstick, and weak. Then it spread out, entered his palm, and finally drilled into the spiritual sword in his hand. The first step to nurture a sword is to infuse essence into the sword. Nurture the spiritual sword by feeding it with sword skill essence. Besides the sword wielder's own strength, the sword in hand is also important. Only when both achieve their peak can the full strength be unleashed. Lu Wanqiu stared at the secluded forest, lost in thought for a moment, then turned to Zhao Huai, bowed deeply, and said earnestly, "Young Master Zhao, thank you." If he hadn't been there, she might have been in grave danger this time. "May I ask, to which sect does the young master belong?" Lu Wanqiu felt that Zhao Huai's cultivation was so high that he must have had some significant backing. "I haven't joined any sect, just a loose cultivator." Zhao Huai shook his head. Upon hearing this answer, Lu Wanqiu was stunned. Young Master Zhao was such a young loose cultivator? Unexpected yet reasonable. In fact, there were such people in the immortal cultivation world, just very rare. They mostly had luck and unusual talents, which allowed them to enter the path of immortality. With young Master Zhao's talent and strength, joining a sect must have been extremely easy. He must have preferred the carefree life and chose not to join a sect. So that time with the fox demon, it was also the young master who took action? Lu Wanqiu quickly remembered her previous experience and immediately made the connection. You could say that. So Lu Wanqiu immediately took out a small bag and presented it with both hands, saying earnestly, "Please accept these spiritual stones, young master. You have helped me a lot and I really can't repay you. Please let me present these spiritual stones as a gift." Sect disciples usually take on tasks when going down the mountain, and when the tasks are completed, they often receive generous rewards. He had helped her twice, and both times were crucial for her success. She was a person who knew gratitude and wanted to repay him. If she didn't give him something, her conscience would be troubled. Fine then. Seeing her serious demeanor, Zhao Huai felt it would be inappropriate to refuse, so he accepted it silently. As he took the hemp bag and glanced inside, he saw a large amount of intermediate-grade spiritual stones. There were probably over 100 stones in the bag. Lu Wanqiu was certainly generous. Also, it had to be said that sect disciples were quite wealthy. "I must go back to the sect and report this first. Young Master Zhao, I shall take my leave." After giving the spiritual stones, Lu Wanqiu bid farewell to Zhao Huai and left on her sword. Zhao Huai looked at the setting sun and suddenly realized that a lot of time had passed. He had set out in the morning, arrived at noon, spent the afternoon on the Lantern Woman, and had mostly been in a deep slumber. Time to go back, Madam must be getting worried. Zhao Huai called for his mynah bird, and his figure disappeared into the secluded forest. The gloomy atmosphere here had dissipated, returning to its former tranquility. The sky was dark, and the lights flickered inside Huai's pawnshop. Zhao Huai saw that the shop was still lit and the door was open, knowing that Madam must still be waiting for him. Meanwhile, the mynah bird couldn't wait anymore and flew to the beam, calling out, "Home, we're home." Zhao Huai entered and looked around. The room was meticulously tidied, and hanging on the wall was an ink painting with a plum blossom snow scene. It had to be said that Madame had a unique love for plum blossoms, which represented perseverance, integrity, and a soft exterior but a strong interior. She liked them very much. At this moment, Yu Qinghan was wearing a thin white dress, sitting on the bed in the bedroom, slowly cultivating. Discovering that Zhao Huai had powerful cultivation had given her quite a shock. She must hurry and improve her own cultivation. Although her talent was not bad, the years of fighting in the north and south had consumed much time, slowing her cultivation progress. Now, only one step away from reaching the initiation stage, she must seize the time to break through. Hearing the door opening, Yu Qinghan withdrew from her cultivation state, glanced at the room, and smiled warmly, "Husband, you're back." Zhao Huai slowly pushed the door, took off his bamboo hat, hung it on the wall, and replied softly, "Yes, I'm back. I had many things to do today, that's why I came back late." "Have you eaten yet?" "Not yet." Zhao Huai came straight home, so naturally, he had forgotten about eating. "How can that be?" "Let me make you a bowl of noodles." Yu Qinghan pouted and went to the kitchen. Zhao Huai looked at her busy figure and smiled, feeling an unspeakable warmth in his heart. Compared to the past when he was all alone, now there was someone in his life who worried about him and was waiting for him to come home. This feeling was wonderful. Here it is. Soon, a steaming hot bowl of clear soup egg noodles was placed in front of Zhao Huai. The noodles were sprinkled with scallions and lean meat, and it was hard to resist the temptation. Zhao Huai chuckled and took out a red object from behind him. "Madam, look, what is this?" "It's sugar-coated haws." Yu Qinghan saw a stick of haws coated with red sugar and couldn't help but feel delighted. "I know you like sweets, so you'll definitely like this." Zhao Huai smiled. At this, Yu Qinghan's face turned red, and she was touched that her husband remembered her little habits. She stuck out her tender tongue and licked the sugar coating of the sugar-coated haws, smiling like a blooming flower. It's very sweet. I'm glad you like it." As Zhao Huai was eating heartily, he suddenly noticed that someone was staring at him intently with both hands cupping her cheeks. It seemed like she was thinking about something. "Madam, why are you staring at me?" Being stared at by his wife, Zhao Huai couldn't help but smile. He felt that there was something strange about her tonight, different from usual. "My husband's appetite is so good, I am fascinated by watching you eat." Yu Qinghan straightened her body and smiled. "Madam, don't tease me." Zhao Huai shook his head and suddenly realized that someone was missing from the room. He couldn't help but ask. "By the way, where is Xiang Yun?" She went back in the afternoon, saying that her family was urging her to return. "She sneaked out to visit me while passing by." Yu Qinghan stood up and walked to the window as she said this, gently pushed open the window. The moonlight outside was incredibly clear, pouring down like clear water. "That girl didn't even say a word." Zhao Huai clicked his tongue and glanced at the silver moon outside. Looking at his wife's fair and beautiful side face, he felt that she was somewhat melancholic tonight, and couldn't help but feel sorry for her. After all, her background was quite miserable. Abandoned by the emperor, her aristocratic family declined, her father passed away early, and she had conflicts with her family, which led to her being expelled. It could be said that she had lost everything. Others might find it hard to understand this kind of loneliness. But he was different. He'd been used to living as a bachelor, so he understood her feelings very well. It was just like the emotions he had felt when he first came to this world, helpless, lonely, and lost. Having lost his appetite for noodles, Zhao Huai suddenly stood up, went to Yu Qinghan's side, hugged her slender waist and whispered in her ear. "I've been here all along." Yu Qinghan withdrew her gaze from the bright moon and responded with a smile. "Qinghan, let's go to the rooftop to stargaze." "What do you think?" Zhao Huai suggested. To emphasize closeness, he didn't call her madam but directly used her pet name. "Sure." It was already late May, and the weather was gradually getting warmer. The night sky was cloudless, the moon was large, and countless stars twinkled incessantly. Zhao Huai led Yu Qinghan to the rooftop of the third floor, opened a skylight, and climbed up the ladder. "The scenery tonight is nice." He couldn't help but laugh as he looked at the myriad of stars. Zhao Huai plopped down on the ground, not sitting properly but with legs bent, 1 foot hoisted, 1 foot flat, both hands resting behind his head, leaning against the wall without a care, a lazy air emanating from him as he slowly closed his eyes. He allowed the cool night breeze to caress his face. "Husband's pose looks quite unrestrained." Yu Qinghan covered her mouth and laughed. In response to her questioning, Zhao Huai, without opening his eyes, leisurely replied, "This isn't being unrestrained. It's being relaxed." Having said that, he showed a contented expression. "Relaxed?" Yu Qinghan murmured to herself. It was the first time she had heard this term. "Yes, look, ordinary people spend their days running around and dealing with various emotions, tired from coping. Even cultivators have to face all kinds of troubles, grudges, schemes, and dangers. It's so exhausting. Why not rest a bit and take it easy?" When you put it that way, it does make sense. Yu Qinghan thought about it and realized he was right. After all her hard work, she still hadn't achieved what she truly wanted. Thinking about this, she smiled slightly, "But with my husband, I already feel very relaxed." Seeing that her mood had improved, Zhao Huai felt gratified and said with a smile. "Try sitting like this. It's quite comfortable." Yu Qinghan let out an "oh" and followed his example, lying down casually. However, she felt this way of sitting was not suitable for wearing a skirt. Her feet involuntarily curled, and her slender, straight legs were exposed from under the skirt. Jiao Hui reveled in the sight, his eyes squinting in amusement as he said, "Why not lean on my shoulder? The effect would be even better." Yu Qinghan immediately saw through his little thoughts and scolded, "You're so dirty." Jiao Hui lowered his head and looked at his robe. During the day, he had been running around in the forest, even falling from a tree, so it had gotten quite dirty. "Haha, I forgot." He chuckled dryly to cover up his embarrassment. However, after hesitating for only a moment, Yu Qinghan still leaned her head on him. She knew that her husband was a clean person and that his current dirtiness must have been for some reason. How could she actually dislike him for being dirty? Jiao Hui raised his head to look at the moon while the beauty in his arms closed her eyes as if she was about to fall asleep. The cool breeze brushed past them, blowing strands of her hair, making him wrinkle his nose. The soft, black hair played across his face, tickling him. He slowly climbed his hand onto her slender waist and couldn't help pinching it. Clearly, he felt Madame's body shiver slightly. "Madame, you smell so nice. How about now?" "You're too bad." Yu Qinghan didn't know when she had opened her eyes, but she pursed her lips and scolded without any intent of refusal. "Heh." Jiao Hui chuckled wickedly, scooping up the beauty in his arms, holding her like a princess. He hurriedly descended the rooftop, eager for a romantic night. Late night. In the grand mansion of the Raven sect. A group of disciples dressed in black long robes guarded the main gate. They were all newcomers to the Raven sect with the lowest status, having only recently joined, they were assigned to keep watch at night. With nothing to do, they engaged in idle conversation. "Hey, just what does the respected saintess look like under that veil? Just looking at those big eyes shining like stars makes me drool." "Knock it off, the respected saintess is above your desires. Don't you want to live?" "If you ask me, her white hair is what I find most intriguing, I've never seen anything like it." "All you know is about the saintess? Haven't you realized that life has gotten better after joining the sect? Master Zhang said things will be even better in the future." "Yeah, the good days are coming. There's a big drought in Hedong and it's causing famine. I thought I would starve to death, but then Master Zhang took me in. I heard that our brothers everywhere are waiting for the right time to act. When that time comes, we'll push out this crappy government and divide the land. Destroy the Xia country, divide the land." As the few of them shouted their slogans, they felt invigorated as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Their eyes filled with zeal, and the crow tattoos on their necks were glowing brightly. It's not surprising that they have such resentment against the Xia country. Yan country had enjoyed 500 years of greatness, but it could not withstand the decline of its national fortune. Emperor Xia Yu Daoqing at the time was nothing more than a local garrison general. Then the flames of rebellion spread rapidly across the Yan country, especially in the south and north of the Great River and the Jianghui region. With overwhelming force, they fiercely attacked the ruling power of the Yan. Emperor Xia Yu Daoqing seized the opportunity and decisively raised his army. His 2 sons and daughter displayed their divine skills in battle, winning victory after victory, absorbing a large number of rebel forces and quickly rising to power. Particularly, his daughter showed unparalleled martial prowess leading the elite soldiers in battle. In just 1 year, she pacified the entire Jiangnan region and was given the title of senior general, commanding all 3 armies. They headed north, aiming directly at Yan City. But as far as the common people were concerned, the death of a weak lion simply led to a strong wolf taking its place. The new dynasty was established, but the national fortune was still unstable. At this moment, in the courtyard of the mansion, the bead curtain at the entrance was gently lifting, and a black-robed woman in a veil slowly walked out. Her eyes under her eyelashes were as radiant as jewels, and when she walked, the bells at her feet jingled softly. Nanyu, the saintess of the Raven sect. Her cultivation has reached the initiation realm. She isn't just someone chosen by the Crow Immortal, controlling the power within the sect, but also one of the strongest in terms of abilities. The Raven sect has a strict hierarchy with the Crow Master and the Saintess at the top. They oversee the members of the sect, while Protectors, Bureau Masters, and Master Zhang serve as branches lurking in various areas. Greetings, Saintess. Several disciples stood up straight upon seeing her, and shouted respectfully. Nanyu responded indifferently, not even glancing at the disciples at the entrance, and walked straight out of the courtyard, stopping at the gate. Looking at the bright moon, her eyes shimmered as if waiting for some news. Suddenly, a series of ravens soared across the sky, and several shadows gradually appeared in the darkness. One of the shadows knelt down and said, "Respected Saintess, many grain merchants in the city have already obeyed the instructions of the Crow Immortal. We've been undercover in the police station for several days now. Many constables have also obeyed the Crow Immortal's instructions." Nanyu nodded lightly. "Well done. With the government not taking action, there's nothing to stop you in Jianzhou. Continue spreading the teachings and devote the power of your faith to Lord Crow Immortal. The sect won't let you down." "Is the Saintess leaving?" asked a subordinate, looking up in surprise. "Yes, I will return to the capital city at daybreak." "Is there an emergency in the capital city?" "It's an order from the Crow Master." "You don't need to know." Nanyu's tone was indifferent. "Yes." The subordinate lowered his head, not daring to ask further questions. Nanyu's trip to the capital city had a purpose. The Crow Master mentioned that he had received a revelation from the Crow Immortal through a dream. They said that when the 3 dragons trapped in heaven occurs, the Ziwei star fades, it will be advantageous for us. This Vayer marks the beginning of the Raven sect's Yu rising. So we must keep a close eye on the capital's every move. Once the opportunity presents itself, it will be the time to rise up. Crow Master is the incarnation of Lord Crow Immortal and holds the highest position in the sect. Even she cannot defy him. Nanyu looked at the kneeling cultist and instructed seriously, "Not only should we let ordinary people join the sect, but we must also seek out talented individuals. After all, having too many people in the sect will make it difficult to manage, and we need a lot of talents. Understand?" "Of course, I know quite a few excellent candidates myself." The leader, Master Zhang, couldn't help but laugh. Now, the Jianzhou branch is different from the past. They no longer need to rely on processions to attract sect members. Their perpetuation is now thriving, and the power of the Crow Immortal has grown stronger. They can borrow some power from Crow Immortal and force people to join the Raven sect, seizing perpetuation. However, this only works on ordinary people for now, as cultivators have extraordinary spiritual powers, making it difficult to achieve. Master Zhang glanced at the sky, gradually turning fishbelly white and flattered. "Would you like me to accompany you, respected Saintess?" Nanyu lightly hummed in agreement. The Raven cultists escorted the Saintess, leaving the inner city all the way. "This is far enough." After Nanyu finished speaking, a pair of black wings emerged from her back. She leaped, and quickly disappeared from sight. As Master Zhang watched her leave, he turned around enthusiastically, rubbing his hands, planning a grand scheme to live up to the Saintess's expectations. A man who had just woken up happened to walk by, opening his shop with a bird perched on his shoulder. "This person looks familiar. Isn't he the guy who rejected me on the street last time?" A bright idea struck him. "Now I've got you. How dare you reject me last time? So it is decided then. This man is handsome and appears to be a prominent figure here. To have him join the Raven sect would be quite beneficial. Wait here, I already have my first candidate in mind." "Yes." After giving his instructions, he immediately followed the man. The symbol on his neck began to move, and the phantom of a raven emerged in his pupils. As long as the man looks back at him, he would fall into an endless admiration for Lord Crow Immortal. He gathered true chi, reached out to grab the man's shoulder, and pulled him over. He went straight for spiritual suppression. However, not long after extending his hand, it was caught by the man's firm grip. The handsome man turned around and questioned, "Ambushing me? What's your intention?" The dissatisfaction in his tone was evident. Seeing this man's reaction, Master Zhang was stunned for a moment before unleashing the spiritual power of Crow Immortal, attempting to force his way through. The invisible raven power burst forth. However, it was blocked by a solid wall and directly rebounded back. And the handsome man merely narrowed his eyes. A terrifying aura spread out, like a surging dragon, directly entering Master Zhang's mind, unleashing a furious roar. It was deafening, like continuous thunder, a seemingly dimension-shattering attack. Master Zhang quickly retreated several steps, his face pale, and his eyes widened. He thumped onto the ground, passing out. What kind of weakling is this? The handsome man shook his head and went back home with his sesame seed cake. When the other cult members found Master Zhang on the ground, they discovered that he had become completely dull-witted. Going out to distract the mind, seeking follow-up reading. Zhao Huai sat at the entrance of the pawnshop, eating a sesame seed cake and listening to the constable who was passing by talking about a cult leader, dementia, the impact of words, and the clear vocabulary of the distribution of grain due to drought-induced famine, which attracted the attention of the government. It was said that the imperial court allocated some grain, but it was not quite enough, and it would not last until autumn. By next month, it would run out. Zhao Huai heard just bits and pieces. He had finally managed to get up early today, wanting to buy a sesame seed cake, when a person rushed towards him as if he were sick and tried to take action. Fortunately, Zhao Huai had his divine insight and noticed the man's actions early. What was even more outrageous was that the man actually wanted to brainwash him. That fluctuation in spiritual power was obvious to anyone with clear eyes. He showed no mercy and directly activated the insanity technique, shocking the man into a stupefied state. The insanity technique was a spiritual power magic technique. Once cultivated to the initiation stage, it could impose pressure and also protect the in the mind. This awakened Zhao Huai to the fact that cults were never up to any good. Their outward humility was feigned, and they were all secretly hatching some sinister plan. Whenever the cult was mentioned, his mind would mysteriously think of the White Lotus and the Fragrance sect. He didn't know if this Raven sect was doing something rebellious like them. But in the end, it didn't concern him. After finishing his morning meal, Zhao Huai was still idle. His wife had worked late into the night, and at this point, she hadn't gotten up yet. So, he could only enter his daily cultivation. He took out a vigor-gathering pill and slowly circulated his true vigor. The magical power in his body steadily increased. This vigor-gathering pill was specifically used to improve the cultivation of magical power for cultivators in the initiation stage. After taking 3 vigor-gathering pills in a row, he found that his magical power had increased a lot, and his cultivation had reached the bottleneck of the first layer of the initiation stage. However, he suddenly realized that each time he took a pill, its effect would be suppressed and greatly reduced. Almost all pills produced such effects. However, because of the spiritual wood's friend Destiny, Zhao Huai could help himself dispel the impurities in the pills and panacea, absorb their essence, greatly enhance their efficacy, and avoid side effects. Thus, the benefits of the 3 vigor-gathering pills far exceeded the general situation. Now that I'm 23 years old and have already broken through the initiation stage, the speed is indeed fast, Zhao Huai couldn't help but exclaim. Ordinary people often reach the initiation stage around the age of 80, and their lifespans are generally exhausted before they die. Moreover, there are no resources accumulated, so it is unknown whether they can break through the bottleneck of the initiation stage. Disciples with spiritual roots and aptitude from the sects could break through the initiation stage around the age of 30. As long as they reach the initiation realm, their lifespan will double, gaining a significant amount of time. The condensed liquid formed by true vigor gradually solidified and became a symbol of the golden core, but he was still far from that step. The reason why he was able to break through the initiation stage so quickly was entirely due to the diligent reader Destiny and the initiation pill's advantage. When mentioning the initiation pill, Zhao Huai couldn't help but ponder. He always felt that the black ring he got had an extraordinary origin. There were so many kinds of pills mixed in one bottle. Would ordinary people do this? There were pills for healing wounds, pills for replenishment during closed-door cultivation and consuming essence and blood. It also included spiritual sword and secret techniques. Could these be the remains of a sect cultivator who had gone out? Soon, Zhao Huai shook his head and didn't think too much about it. It didn't matter who it belonged to, all that mattered was that he liked it. For the rest of the time, he focused his mind on swordsmanship. With the sword skill genius destiny, he never fell behind in his comprehension of swordsmanship. Zhao Huai found that although his current sword drawing skill was useful, it was somewhat monotonous because it was a sword technique comprehended in the refining chi stage. If he encountered a large number of enemies, or special circumstances like pursuit or long-range attacks, it wouldn't be enough. In other words, now that he had broken through the initiation stage, he needed an even stronger sword technique. Now that a week had passed since his swordsmanship enlightenment, it was excellent, providing a state where he could immerse himself in a deep meditation time of man and sword as one, greatly speeding up his sword skill practice. Practicing swordsmanship daily was essential since it was through the sword that one gained true knowledge. However, subsequent comprehension and summary of sword techniques were equally important. Zhao Huai sat cross-legged, silently contemplating. In his mind, images slowly evolved, and the small figure formed by spiritual power constantly wielded sword techniques, representing the sum of Zhao Huai's swordsmanship learning in his lifetime. Sword techniques learned from others were, after all, created by others. It was inevitable that there would be flaws in the match, but those created by oneself were undoubtedly most suitable for oneself. With sword skill genius and crystal clear sword heart working together, Zhao Huai was confident that he could comprehend the swordsmanship most suitable for him. At this moment, it was morning, the fierce sun was rising, and the day was just beginning. Pure sunlight poured into the pawnshop, casting its rays on Zhao Huai's face. He slowly opened his eyes, gazing at the sun as if in deep thought. Not knowing how long he had been contemplating, a streak of crimson chi flow suddenly appeared in his mind at a certain moment. The crimson chi flow revolved around the spirit figure in his mind, dancing and weaving patterns. Eventually, it merged into the figure, and in an instant, the sword technique it wielded changed. New sword moves evolved from it. The crimson chi flow concealed within the long sword, building up without releasing for a moment until it finally unleashed a brilliant light with boundless sword chi erupting in all directions. Success! A glint flashed across Zhao Huai's eyes, the corner of his mouth curling into a smile. Since it originated from observing the sun, let's call it sun observing. Swordsmanship. First move, Fierce Sunday. At noon, in the bedroom of the pawnshop. Zhao Huai sat by the bed while Yu Qinghan sat in front of a bronze mirror with various bottles and jars spread out on the cabinet, carefully applying makeup to her face. "Madam, why didn't I see you taking such care before? I thought you would not know how to do this." Waiting and watching, Zhao Huai couldn't help but ask her curiously. Before they got married, he barely saw his wife put on makeup, usually wearing a plain face. Even without makeup, she was beautiful as a fairy. Yu Qinghan, upon hearing his question, smiled lightly and said, "I didn't used to put on makeup because there was no need. When going to the battlefield, my face would be covered in blood, so even if I wore makeup, it would get smudged. Nowadays, life is peaceful and I have more leisure time. Besides, don't I need to dress up well when going out with my husband?" Hearing that, Zhao Huai couldn't help but smile. Yes, he planned to take a break today, close the shop, and give himself a good vacation. Ever since his sister-in-law left last night, he had noticed that his wife was feeling out of sorts. So, today he took the initiative to propose going out for the day to relax. Besides, the two had been married for over a month and had not gone out together yet for a honeymoon, which would be a wonderful experience. "I think Madam looks beautiful even without makeup." Staring at his lovely wife's back, Zhao Huai's words trailed off, his eyes fixating on her. "Husband, do I look beautiful?" At that moment, Yu Qinghan turned around with a slight smile on her face. She deliberately applied rouge to her lips, making them a bright and vivid red. Her eyebrows, nose, and everything else were drawn exquisitely, and her slanted eyes sparkled brightly. Wearing a pink pleated skirt, with a plum blossom jade hairpin on her head just so, she exuded an air of royal elegance. Boasting an overwhelmingly stunning charisma compared to her plain look before, she was now even more pleasing to the eye. Taking her out like this would bring him so much pride. Let's go, let's get out ot near. Zhao Huai closed the door of the pawnshop and, grabbing Yu Qinghan's delicate hand, headed straight for the streets. Zhao Huai held Yu Qinghan's hand as they walked down the street. A gentle breeze carried the faint orchid scent from Yu Qinghan's body, involuntarily entering the nose, making the mood pleasant. At this time on the official road, there were passing carriages, cargo-carrying laborers, hurried pedestrians, and numerous stores one after another, creating a lively scene. Suddenly, Zhao Huai blinked and saw under Yu Qinghan's thin gauze shirt, the outline of a koi fish swimming among blue lotuses, wrapping and curving smoothly, making it form-fitting and showcasing the figure perfectly. He glanced quickly and casually remarked, "Madam seems to like this style of underwear, it looks suitable for you too. Why don't we buy a few more?" Yu Qinghan lowered her head and looked down, smiling slightly. "It's because my husband has good taste." "This is enough, buying more would just be a waste of money, wouldn't it?" "It doesn't matter. As long as Madam likes them, we can buy as many as we want. Beautiful clothes can never be too many. If those elegant young ladies can wear dozens of them, why can't my wife?" Zhao Huai said earnestly. He wouldn't mind at all having a new look every day was pleasing to the eye. Having said that, he led Yu Qinghan to the clothing store they visited before. It seemed to be a shop called Huachun Room. As soon as the couple entered the store, the shopkeeper greeted them with a smile and recognized Zhao Huai. "Oh, if it isn't the young master from last time? Welcome, welcome. You still remember me, shopkeeper?" Zhao Huai couldn't help but laugh. The shopkeeper's eyes curved in a smile. "Of course, there aren't many men who come to our store to shop, and with the handsome looks of the young master, how could I forget?" In her eyes, Zhao Huai was a valued customer. His last purchase had significantly boosted the store's sales. How could she not welcome him? The shopkeeper had sharp eyes and noticed Yu Qinghan following behind, smiling as she praised her. "I presume this must be Madam." "Indeed, as beautiful and enchanting as they say. Such a lovely aura, I'm really envious." Yu Qinghan, accustomed to the compliments, only gave a faint smile. "You flatter me, shopkeeper." Although she was in her early 20s, she had long lost the greenness of a young girl, and her distinguished elegance was evident in every gesture she made. Both had high cultivation levels, which added an ethereal and dustless aura to their appearance. The shopkeeper shook her head in heartfelt admiration. Such a handsome couple with a fated connection, a match made in heaven, and truly rare. "Today, whatever the two of you want in the store, I'll give you a great price." Zhao Huai simply regarded it as the shopkeeper's ability to do business and didn't decline. He then began to select clothes in the store. Suddenly, he noticed a box of white silk stockings displayed on the counter. Curious, he picked them up and asked, "What are these, shopkeeper? I didn't see them last time." The shopkeeper glanced and explained, "These are the latest trend, jade silk mesh socks. With summer solstice coming, wearing these will protect you from both mosquitoes and heat. The breathability of the jade silk is excellent." Zhao Huai held the mesh socks, nodding slightly. It seemed like the phrase, "treading on gentle waves, mesh socks stirring up dust," was referring to these. "Madam, what do you think?" He then asked for Yu Qinghan's opinion. Yu Qinghan felt the material of the socks and couldn't help but nod slowly, softly smiling. "Yes, they're quite nice. We'll take them." "All right." The shopkeeper smiled and quickly packed them up. Afterward, Zhao Huai continued to select clothes while Yu Qinghan tried each one on. During the process, he feasted his eyes. No doubt, with a martial background, Madam's physique was perfect. No matter the outfit, she could pull it off and fill it out. She was like a living clothes hanger. How could he let her down? Had to buy them all. At first, Yu Qinghan was worried about spending too much money. But after Zhao Huai's persuasion, she let go of her worries. His extensive property could easily afford a dozen or so outfits. It didn't hurt at all. Since he had obtained 100 medium-grade spiritual stones from Wanqiu, his financial strength had become even more impressive. Buying these clothes was just a drop in the bucket. Later on, Yu Qinghan no longer held back and started trying on clothes actively. It seemed that shopping for clothes was indeed a woman's nature. Zhao Huai watched his wife in front of a bronze mirror in the store, feeling inexplicably happy. To marry such a woman, young master is truly fortunate, the shopkeeper joked in a flattering tone. Zhao Huai glanced at the packed jade silk mesh socks, pondered for a moment, and beckoned with a smile, "Come here, shopkeeper. What can I do for you, young master?" The shopkeeper approached, and Zhao Huai whispered, "I feel the mesh socks you have here are still too conservative." "You mean?" The shopkeeper seemed puzzled, not understanding his words. Zhao Huai hooked the corner of his mouth and smiled faintly, "I have a new type of mesh sock. If you can make it, I guarantee it will sell like hotcakes." "Is it true?" Hearing his words, the shopkeeper's face was full of surprise. "Of course. Do you have paper and a brush? I'll draw it for you." "Certainly." The shopkeeper brought paper and a brush, handing them to Zhao Huai. Zhao Huai dipped the pen in ink, relying on his memories, began to draw. The shopkeeper watched the object on the paper become clearer, and her face became increasingly strange. When Zhao Huai finished, she couldn't help questioning him, "The object you drew is similar to the mesh socks, but much longer and goes all the way up to the waist?" Zhao Huai slowly explained, "Its use is not small, depending on the material used, and it will have different functions, such as cold protection, preventing swelling, and sun protection. Of course, these are not its most important functions. Its most important function is to have a magical power that will make couples and lovers fall deeper in love and be more harmonious." The shopkeeper exclaimed, "Is it really that magical? What is this item called?" "Black silk." "Does this black silk really have such magical powers?" The shopkeeper asked curiously. "Make it and sell it, then you'll know," Zhao Huai replied with a smile. He added, "Furthermore, if you can make another item I mention, you might even be able to open a branch store in the capital city." The shopkeeper's breathing grew rapid, and she quickly asked, "What is it?" "Underwear." For the rest of the time, Zhao Huai discussed with the shopkeeper about how to make underwear, its advantages, the benefits it would bring to women, and so on. All in all, the shopkeeper remained half-doubting but did not fully believe in it. Zhao Huai wasn't in a hurry, he told her to make the items first, and then they could discuss the sales strategy later. They also agreed to check the merchandise in a few days. "Take care both of you." As Zhao Huai and Yu Qinghan left Huachun room, the shopkeeper saw them off with a smile. Yu Qinghan put all the clothes she bought in her storage necklace, and then looked at Zhao Huai curiously with her eyes. "Husband, it seems that you talked to the shopkeeper for a long time. What were you talking about?" Zhao Huai mysteriously smiled, "Nothing much, just a little business. If successful, we won't have to worry about spending spiritual stones in the future." Yu Qinghan understood in her heart and thought that it must be a big business deal. "Oh, I see. Where shall we go next?" "Come, let's go fishing with your husband." The two walked out of the inner city and arrived at the outer city, where a large number of earth-built houses appeared. Compared to the inner city, the outer city changed dramatically, with generally low and poorly built houses, and not much vitality on the streets. The pedestrians, dressed in simple clothes, rarely showed smiles on their faces. They sat at the wooden doors of their houses, watching Zhao Huai and Yu Qinghan pass by, and curiously observed their attire. Zhao Huai glanced at them one by one, and most people couldn't help but lower their gazes. He found that the people here were all very thin, and their eyes were different from those in the inner city. That timid look was a barrier they could never cross in their lifetime. Yu Qinghan, who was beside him, also noticed this detail, and a trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. Noticing her reaction, Zhao Huai explained. "There has been a great drought in the Su Lake area this year. The crops planted in the spring didn't yield any harvest, so there is a famine." Yu Qinghan nodded and frowned. The government didn't take any action, which is absurd. The government simply doesn't have the ability to take care of this. They still have so many troops to feed, they can't manage even if they want to. Zhao Huai shook his head with a smile after hearing this. Xia country is ultimately ill-gotten, and people's grievances still exist. I don't know when the explosion will occur. The reason Zhao Huai said this was that Yu Qinghan was treated unfairly by the emperor of the Xia, which led to grievances. Thus, these words were not harmful, even somewhat gratified by others' misfortune. Hearing his words, Yu Qinghan didn't refute them but instead fell into deep thought. Let's go. There's a small stream ahead in the bamboo forest. There was a small stream flowing through the outer city, which seemed more like a huge village than a city. The houses were mostly made of wood and clay, surrounded by dense forests. The location was obviously well chosen since it was by the sea and prone to typhoons. The surrounding forests provided protection, reducing the wind and rain that the village needed to withstand. Arriving at a quiet bamboo forest, they listened to the gurgling stream. Zhao Huai took out the fishing rod he prepared earlier. Seeing Yu Qinghan lost in thought while looking at the stream, he couldn't help but ask curiously. Madam, what's wrong? Yu Qinghan gave a faint smile. I was just thinking about the past. After encamping with the army, besieging, and fighting, I would hope for a small stream like this to appear before me, so I could take a bath and have a full meal. Now that I think about it, the present days feel like a dream. Zhao Huai stuck the fishing rod in the mud and comforted her, saying, Xiang Yin told me everything. The past is the past, and there's nothing worth lingering over. What did she tell you? Upon hearing Pei Shangyun's name, Yu Qinghan turned her head, her eyes flickering slightly. She told me some stories about your past, including the emperor's treatment of your family and the unfair things your two brothers did to you. Zhao Huai sighed and thought that although these were things Madame didn't want to hear, they had to be faced eventually. Talking about them would help solve the problems better. Yu Qinghan lightly smiled. That girl, she just likes to talk. There's no such thing as grinding and unfairness. It's just that our circumstances were beyond our control. Circumstances beyond our control? Zhao Huai muttered quietly. Speaking solemnly, Yu Qinghan explained, both serving in the army and managing family affairs were never what I wanted. But being born into a family, we can't control our lives. How can we easily break free? So it's correct to say that. Has Madame really let it go? Lve Long let go of it, they are no longer important. Yu Qinghan's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. Didn't my husband say that cultivating immortality leads to a carefree, happy life? I think it makes sense. In the end, these things amount to nothing. It's better to focus on cultivation and enjoy the happiness of living a carefree life. Zhao Huai nodded, indeed. He had told his wife about his immortal cultivation philosophy more than once, and it seemed, step by step, she had taken it to heart. Yu Qinghan looked deeply at Zhao Huai and sighed. Now I think I understand why you didn't want to marry me initially. It must have been because you were worried about this, right? She now understood Zhao Huai's decision-making attitude and naturally showed understanding for his actions back then. Steer clear of worldly affairs, mind your own business, and live a long life. That must be the experience her husband has gained from his cultivation thus far. My dear, you're still bringing that up. Zhao Huai let out an awkward chuckle. Since that's the case, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's go fishing. Yu Qinghan said with a playful smile. However, I'm afraid there are no fish in the river. The crystal clear water and the sediment indicate that the common people outside the city must have caught all of them. She pointed at the small river, her expression extremely serious. Zhao Huai glanced at the small stream, his divine insight quickly sweeping through the water in front of him. He found that as his wife had said, there were no fish in the river at all, not even small fry were left. It seemed that it was true the fish had all been eaten due to the famine. Sure are unexpected troubles. Zhao Huai gave a bitter smile, but soon cheered up again. Don't worry, I have other plans. What? Soak in a hot spring. Zhao Huai grinned. A hot spring? Are you talking about a heated spring? Yu Qinghan naturally knew what kind of thing he was talking about, and she, too, had heard about this so-called hot spring, essentially nature's source of hot water, albeit a rare one. To my knowledge, there seems to be no hot spring around Jinzhou like the one you mentioned, right? Zhao Huai shook his head, smiling. They just haven't been discovered yet. Once, by chance, I found a hot spring in the mountains. It's definitely a sacred place for relaxation. He had stumbled upon the hot spring when he first fled to Jinzhou, passing through the mountains. Every month, he would go there for a soak and felt quite contented. Shameful. Shameful. At this moment, a white-furred bird fluttered out, flying past his head. That stupid bird again. Zhao Huai could tell without looking that it was the myna bird and couldn't help but curl his lips. The treasure-seeking myna was quite peculiar. It should bring back something good every day, but after getting some low-grade spiritual grass and panaceas, it often returned empty-beaked. It was considered fortunate to have some spiritual stones occasionally. He speculated that all the good stuff in the vicinity had already been plucked. Clean by me myna. To find treasure, there must be treasure in the first place. Failing to find anything in just one location in Jinzhou was normal. That myna bird has become smarter and smarter. It can now fly out of the house by itself and find me. Zhao Huai touched his forehead, speechless. Yu Qinghan smiled gently. It's a good thing to be smart. All creatures have spirits. Maybe it will bring good luck to my husband in the future? The myna perched on Yu Qinghan's jade finger, its feathers looking more lustrous and its bean-sized eyes brighter. Yu Qinghan stroked its feathers, smiling. Little bird, what do you say? The myna chirped innocently. Yes, madam is the most beautiful. He he he. Yu Qinghan couldn't help but laugh as the bird amused her. Xiao's imperial city. The vermilion gates exude an ancient charm. The white jade steps are covered in fallen petals that break one's heart. The colorful glazed tiles reflect dazzling brilliance. Pavilions and terraces, small bridges and flowing water, all arranged with care. Layer upon layer of exquisitely carved jade reliefs of palace buildings, countless elegantly designed corridors, and lush gardens adorned with exotic flowers and plants. Even little eunuchs and palace maids, who had lived in the palace for several years, often had the amusing experience of taking the wrong path. It showed the vastness of the imperial palace. However, this palace was originally built by the Yan country, which had spent a great deal of resources, cutting down all the tall trees within 100 miles radius. Now it had become the wedding dress for others. Golden Dragon Palace. All civil and martial officials held tablets in their hands, standing on the left and right. The hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Emperor Xia Yu Daoqing sat on the dragon chair, his old face looking down at the officials with bright eyes. Your Majesty, you can start the morning court session now, whispered the eunuch in charge standing beside the dragon chair. Yu Daoqing glanced over the officials and slowly opened his mouth. My beloved ministers, what has happened lately? If there's nothing, let's adjourn the court. His voice was calm, yet authoritative without anger. Your servant has a report to present. A minister in a crimson robe slowly stepped forward. Speak, Minister Fan. The one who spoke was Fan Yan, Grand Secretary of Wenchang Pavilion. Fan Yan began solemnly, this year, we suddenly encountered a great drought. I have asked your Majesty to allocate grain from all over the world to Su Lake. However, there is a cult in the south that has repeatedly disrupted the grain transport route, causing the grain transportation plan to be abandoned. A cult? Yu Daoqing narrowed his eyes with a hint of doubt. Apparently, it was the first time he had heard of it. Yes, your Majesty, this cult is called Raven Sect and has been growing rapidly in the south, causing great difficulties for our administration. Even in the capital, we can see their presence. Another minister stepped forward to explain. Just a mere cult, send people to eliminate them. Issue my decree to have the Black Guards thoroughly investigate the Raven Sect and exterminate them. Yu Daoqing said lightly. Yes, your Majesty. The minister nodded in agreement. The Black Guards were specifically established as the Emperor's eyes and ears, somewhat like the guards before the Emperor. but of a higher rank and more intimate. There were many talented people in it, including dissatisfied cultivators, guest officials from immortal cultivation sects, and cultivators struggling at a bottleneck. Those who really couldn't make it would join the Black Guards and receive a generous salary. Among them, the most famous were the 4 constables in black cloth, who all were at the initiation realm with considerable skills. Their status was even higher than that of the commanders in front of the emperor. They were the emperor's personal bodyguards and only obeyed Yu Daoqing alone. Your servant also has a report. A crimson-robed military official with a chest emblem of a lion stepped forward and spoke loudly. There is a small country in the west called Gulen, which has repeatedly harassed our borders and plundered our spiritual mines and iron mines in the western edge. They are extremely arrogant. Gulen country? Yu Daoqing muttered, if I remember correctly, wasn't that country driven to the west by the northern alien races? They even sent envoys to pay tribute 2 years ago. Your Majesty is right. In recent years, the people of Gulen have settled down after crossing the west, and this year a new king has taken the throne. However, this king has wild ambitions and turned a blind eye to the theft on the border, insisting that he is unaware of the bandits and the chaos. After listening, Yu Daoqing pondered for a while, tapping his fingers on the dragon chair, and then said, such a despicable small country, to destroy it will cost us. If we don't destroy it, it will be a pity. Let the Western Border Army clear up the situation. The crimson-robed military official bowed and solemnly said, Your Majesty, the Western Edge lacks generals, and I fear it may lead to disaster. Yu Daoqing slowly nodded, knowing the meaning of his words. Now, the army of the Xia country was evenly distributed, with the crown prince garrisoning the northern border, where the army was ranked first in strength, defending against the northern alien races. They couldn't be moved. In the central capital area, including the eastern pass, more than 100,000 imperial and garrison troops were stationed, which also could not be moved. Not long ago, he had transferred part of the 5 armies of the southern princess to the western edge to fill the western gap. It seemed that having troops without generals was not enough. No matter how many troops there were, about 100,000, they couldn't be entrusted to just any general. At this time, Minister of Revenue Lu Longqing, who was the first among the officials, saw the change in Emperor Xia's face and stepped forward slowly, saying, Your Majesty, frequent troop movements will consume a lot of grain and manpower. It would be better for Your Majesty to send a trustworthy person to command the army in the western edge. I also thought so, but I couldn't find a suitable candidate. Yu Daoqing glanced at Lu Longqing, very pleased that Minister Lu had thought of the same thing as him. Why not let King Yan handle the border defense in the western edge? He has been with Your Majesty since before the founding of the country, and he has both the qualifications and ability, a minister suggested. But King Yan is responsible for commanding the troops in the capital city, how can he spare the time? Can you find anyone else then? This is just a temporary reassignment, and it's not like he can't be transferred back. Listening to the heated discussion among the ministers, Yu Daoqing fell silent and began to ponder. He had specific reasons for assigning his eldest son to guard the north and his second son to guard the capital city. His eldest son had been afraid of him since childhood and always listened to him. He was well aware that as long as he was alive, his eldest son would not dare to cause trouble. As for his second son, he had been quiet and reticent since childhood, extremely intelligent, and had his own opinions on everything, second only to his daughter. Therefore, his second son could only be confined in the capital city under the guise of commanding the capital region army, though in reality, it was an empty title. Regarding his headstrong daughter, it could be considered the most helpless choice. Having his second son go to the western edge to prepare the border defense might not be a bad idea. After several months, it would not cause too much trouble. He could be recalled at that time. This was indeed the optimal solution. All right, stop arguing. Yu Daoqing shouted, and the ministers in the hall immediately quieted down. He glanced around and announced the decision. Tomorrow, let King Yan set out to the west to handle military affairs. Yes. The ministers responded in unison. Why do I only hear about troubles? Isn't there anything pleasant to report? Yu Daoqing seemed a bit dissatisfied. Minister of Revenue Lu Longqing stepped forward with a smile. Your Majesty, it's time to hold your 60th birthday celebration. The event was postponed because you were seriously ill some time ago. Now that you are on the mend, it is time to resume preparations. Don't you agree, Lord Wang? The Minister of Rights standing nearby also stepped forward and chimed in. Lord Lu is right. He paused and then added, furthermore, 2 days ago, a disciple from the Limitless Immortal sect presented a longevity pill, claiming that it could prolong your lifespan, nourish your health, and help you recover. Hearing the idea of a grand birthday celebration, Yu Daoqing's wrinkled old face finally showed a trace of a smile. Oh? Thank them on my behalf. Limitless Immortal sect was one of the 5 immortal sects from ancient times. If the history of the sect was to be traced, it would predate the immortal calendar. It was rumored that immortals had ascended from their sect, making them a truly great sect. The relationship between Xia country and the sect was quite close, and they generally cooperated with each other. One managed the mortal world, and the other managed the cultivators. They didn't interfere with each other and took what they needed. The sect wouldn't care who sat on the dragon chair, as long as the mortal world was stable. Occasionally, they would send gifts to show friendly intentions, which was sufficient. Xia country wouldn't interfere with the sect, as they already had enough headaches with people's affairs. Lu Longqing bowed and said, according to the rituals, Your Majesty should invite the elders to the capital for a feast during the nationwide celebration. On one hand, it showcases your virtuous character by respecting elders, on the other, it demonstrates your youthful spirit and far-reaching ambitions to the world. Furthermore, it exhibits the benevolence of our Xia country in respecting and valuing the elderly. After listening, Yu Daoqing nodded approvingly, feeling that it made sense. But Fan Yan immediately objected, most old people are inconvenient to move around. Traveling long distances could cost them their lives. Besides, the disaster has not yet passed, so it is not advisable to hold a grand celebration at this time, as it would cost money and burden the people. Lu Longqing sneered and retorted sarcastically, so are you suggesting that we don't celebrate His Majesty's 60th birthday, Lord Fan? Or is it that you don't have His Majesty in your heart? How could I mean that? I just don't advocate for a grand celebration. Fan Yan rebutted angrily. Seeing them start arguing again, Yu Daoqing frowned and said, feeding a few more people won't matter much. I'll foot the bill if necessary. Lord Lu made a valid point about educating the younger generation to value filial piety and respect the elderly. Those who can attend the feast will, but those who cannot need not be forced. Is that acceptable? Paying out of his pocket still meant taking from the people, and the nature of the matter remained unchanged. However, Fan Yan had learned his lesson from the previous occasion and became smarter, not outright refusing but taking a detour. This servant believes that the issue requires further consideration. Yu Daoqing waved his hand. There's no need for further consideration. Lord Lu and Lord Wang will be responsible for handling matters related to the banquet and arrangements. Let's conclude the court session. The forest cast its shade, and the birdsong filled the air. Near the slippery path to the hot spring, green sprouts caught the remaining droplets, and plants sprouted fresh foliage. The refreshing, earthy fragrance was invigorating. Jiao Huai led Yu Qinghan to the valley where the hot spring was situated. All the way, Yu Qinghan played with a bird and laughter was heard intermittently, which brought her immense joy. Seeing this, Jiao Huai couldn't help but smile. It seemed that Madame really enjoyed the mynah bird very much. The hot spring is just ahead. In the depths of the valley, a billowing heat rose up from the hot spring. Even from a distance, it could be seen. As Yu Qinghan approached, her eyes brightened by the sight. The clear water was like a mirror with green duckweed floating on top. The reflection showed the Taoran's peaks, blue dine trees, and green grasses that surrounded the hot spring lined with large boulders. A spring mouth was gushing clear water, making a gurgling sound. Let me check. Yu Qinghan bent down with her jade hand stretched out, feeling the hot spring water. The water's temperature was just right, lukewarm with a touch of heat, which made the skin feel utterly comfortable. Not bad, right? It's even more comfortable when you soak in it. Jiao Huai grinned, having soaked in the hot spring countless times and never forgetting the sensation it brought. With that said, he removed his robe, took off the black ring, and dived into the hot spring water. The warmth spread across his thighs and made him feel like floating on cloud nine, tempted to moan in pleasure and wishing his entire body could be submerged in the hot spring. After several busy days, any troubles could be forgotten the moment he relaxed in the hot spring. Oh my goodness! It's really so comfortable. Jiao Huai leaned against a large stone in the hot spring, his head above the water and eyes squinted with satisfaction. He then grinned at Yu Qinghan. Madam, why are you still hesitating? Hurry and come down. Yu Qinghan bit her lip, looking at the steamy hot spring, her demeanor somewhat coy. It's not like I haven't seen it before. Jiao Huai chuckled. But that was at night, and here's out in the open. It's a little embarrassing, said Yu Qinghan, her cheeks blushing. Don't worry, no one's around. Jiao Huai's divine insight could reach 100 meters, and any human presence or the slightest rustle of grass could not escape his perception. The place was deserted, and it was absolutely safe. Yu Qinghan took off her outer garments, leaving her in thin, intimate underwear. She then revealed her perfectly proportioned long legs, stepping into the water cautiously, testing the temperature with her transparent, enticing jade feet. Jiao Huai glanced from the side, seeing her like an exquisite back of condensed jade. As the water rippled, Yu Qinghan quickly submerged herself into the hot spring, then let out a relaxed breath. How is it? I didn't lie to you, did I? Jiao Huai smiled. It's indeed not bad, but it would be better with some flower petals. Yu Qinghan tucked a wet strand of hair behind her ear and softly replied. Jiao Huai approached her silently while she was unaware. Ah, husband, what are you doing? Yu Qinghan quickly noticed and let out a surprised cry. Ah, well, I saw a scar on the back of Madam's neck and wanted to take a closer look, Jiao Huai explained. Indeed, he had seen a scar the length of a finger hidden beneath her long hair, right under her delicate collarbone. Yu Qinghan turned her head, touched the scar with her hand, and recalled. This is an old wound left from my time in the military. Actually, I have many scars on my body, but most of them have been treated with herbs, so they're not visible. This one's different, for it was left by a cultivator in the initiation realm. Oh? Madam, you've encountered a high-level cultivator before? Jiao Huai expressed a look of surprise. It wasn't feigned, but genuine. Madam's cultivation was even higher than he had imagined. Her cultivation had already surpassed the vast majority of ordinary people, and she could vaguely catch up with the elite disciples in the sect. Now encountering the initiation stage and still being able to retreat with only a scar was indeed too outrageous. Even he didn't have the courage to fight the initiation stage while refining qi. Yu Qinghan nodded slightly. It was a fierce battle. I burned my essence and blood and went all out, barely managing a draw. If the opponent hadn't lacked the intention to kill, I'm afraid I wouldn't have made it. Jiao Huai listened intently, then couldn't help but ask, Madam, I've always had doubts about your strength. Just how far are you? He could feel Yu Qinghan's strength, but what he saw might not be accurate. Some people could fight beyond their level, while others were weak at the same level. People were different. 9th stage of refining qi, almost reaching initiation stage. The next breakthrough shouldn't be too far off. Yu Qinghan didn't hide it and honestly told him. Don't you need an initiation pill to help? Jiao Huai was surprised. Yu Qinghan smiled slightly. I don't need the initiation pill to break through. I have been cultivating with very few pills, and most of the time, things just fall into place. After hearing this, Jiao Huai couldn't help but smile bitterly. Madam is really a genius. If he didn't have destiny in his body, he wouldn't even be able to catch up with the hairs on her body. She revealed her cultivation details to him so openly, yet he was still hiding his own. Wasn't that a bit too dishonest? Upon considering this, Jiao Huai hesitated for a moment and slowly spoke, Madam, there's something I want to tell you. But Yu Qinghan pressed her jade finger against his mouth, laughing softly. Some things should remain unspoken between us. I understand your difficulties, so there's no harm in not mentioning them. As long as both sides understood, there was no need to bring it up. It would only spoil the beauty of it. When did Madame find out? Zhao Huai's expression was somewhat unexpected, but thinking about it carefully, he did have a lot of flaws. You were careless with the things under the tree in the backyard. Upon being reminded by her, Zhao Huai suddenly remembered and couldn't help but scratch his head, smiling awkwardly. I was careless. Regarding Zhao Huai's cultivation, Yu Qinghan was actually more pleasantly surprised. This meant that she didn't have to worry about him aging and didn't have to worry about being eternally youthful alone. Of course, this was based on the premise that they had built a relationship and understood each other. If they didn't know each other well and someone with hidden cultivation suddenly approached, they would naturally be more wary. The atmosphere was slightly silent for a moment. But accompanied by Zhao Huai's fiery gaze, staring at the misty enchanting figure in front of him, he realized that she was almost sitting on his lap. The atmosphere quickly turned romantic. After being soaked in the spring water, her lingerie clung tightly to her tender and smooth skin. Despite the clear water, one could still see the extraordinary curves. Although she had a cold and aloof face and an air of someone not from the mortal world, being in such a posture, nobody could resist her. Madam, do you think there will be any miraculous effects if the two of us cultivate together? Zhao Huai asked with a smile at the corner of his mouth. Yu Qinghan actually began to think seriously. I'm not sure, I've never tried. Why don't we give it a try? Yu Qinghan hesitated for a moment, then looked away, only to find Zhao Huai's face had approached, and his big hand reached over to hold hers, fingers intertwined. Zhao Huai stared at her eyes, as deep as autumn water, yet filled with surprise and embarrassment on her lovely face. Feeling the warmth at the corner of her mouth and the faint fragrance at the tip of her nose, Zhao Huai screamed inside. This is so exhilarating. Let the debauched life begin with the hot spring. He couldn't care about anything else, and his other big hand couldn't help but start to move. Hey, don't. Before Yu Qinghan could finish speaking, accompanied by a splash, she sank into the water. Below the mist, spring blossoms were in full bloom. No one knew how much time had passed when a figure finally emerged from the pool. Woohoo dash. Zhao Huai's head rose out of the water, his face full of unabated enjoyment. While Yu Qinghan was lazily lying in the spring water, her smooth forehead covered with sweat, cheeks flushed, she gave him a slightly annoyed look. Now I understand why my husband is so energetic. Her voice was full of complaints. Zhao Huai laughed out loud, obviously taking her remark as a compliment. They both got up, got dressed, and used true vigor to dry their clothes soaked with spring water. Zhao Huai felt refreshed all over. Scoundrel. Scoundrel. Unexpectedly, a myna bird quickly flew by, as though scolding Zhao Huai. You damn bird, stop running. Zhao Huai was irritated, intending to catch it and smack it on the head, teaching this bird what can be said and what can't. He caught the myna bird, fluffed up its white static feathers. Soon, he noticed something was wrong. The bird's eyes were fixated in the distance with its beady eyes continually spinning around. Zhao Huai had experience with this and knew what it meant. Have you found another treasure? Thus, in the next second, he let go of the myna bird. The myna bird flapped its wings and quickly flew towards the mountains behind the hot spring. Don't bring back something weird again. Zhao Huai thought, naturally not forgetting the previous lantern woman, which was quite a hassle. So, he took out a copper coin and threw it up. Misfortune befalls those with fortune, let's wait and see. Hexagram 1, bright moon shines between the pines, and clear spring flows over the rocks. Going into the rock cave, the guidance you gain is fortune. Trace guidance, this object can be used for cultivation. A clear spring flowing over the rocks is a rock cave? And it can be used for cultivation, that's indeed a valuable thing. Zhao Huai paused but quickly stood midair and followed, calling out to Yu Qinghan below. Madam, stay close to me. Husband, what are you going to do? Yu Qinghan, who had jumped more than 10 meters high and landed on a tall pine tree, couldn't help but ask. Jiao Huai looked back and smiled faintly. You were right, our bird seems to have found something. Can my husband understand bird language by any chance? Yu Qinghan teased, raising an eyebrow. Jiao Huai just smiled and didn't answer. Both of them followed the myna bird to a hillside. This area was wide open with a steep cliff. It was just above the hot spring where they had been soaking. Actually, it was not that far away, right inside the rear mountain of the hot spring. The rock cave was just in the crevice of the cliff. Looking around, Yu Qinghan was puzzled. The spiritual qi here is thick, there must be something unusual. Could it be a spiritual thing from the universe? Each spiritual object from the universe is naturally formed and extremely rare and valuable. It is a precious chance for cultivators to grow wealthy, and it has significant benefits for cultivation. We need to blast the cliff open to know. Jiao Huai pointed below, chuckling. Yu Qinghan smirked, no big deal. As soon as she finished, a halberd appeared in her palm that rapidly gathered true qi. A blast of bluish halberd qi gushed out extremely violently. Boom! There was a loud noise, and all the rocks on the cliff shattered into fragments, turning into rubble. A massive pit appeared on the ground. So powerful. Jiao Huai was taken aback at this sight. It was the first time he had seen his wife attack with a halberd. The halberd user was a bit too ferocious, wasn't he? The dust settled, revealing a spacious rock cave. The cave was filled with a dense spiritual qi, so dense it was like mist compared to the outside. The two quickly entered the cave, and Jiao Huai looked at the strangely shaped stalactites and marveled at the sight. It seems like this is the source of the clear spring? Now Jiao Huai finally understood why there was a hot spring deep in the mountains. It turned out to be due to the existence of such a cave. Glancing at it, it appeared unusual. He wondered what treasures it could hold. The sound of water flowing rang in his ears, gradually getting louder as they moved forward. There was a sudden appearance of a warm pond. Why would I call it warm? Because the steam was so dense that it blurred his vision, making it unclear which was the spiritual mist and which was the water mist. Well, I see. So, this is how hot springs come about. Only upon seeing the source, did Jiao Huai have an epiphany. The hot spring at the bottom of the mountain was the water flowing down from this boiling pond here. Ultimately, the source was this cave. Husband, look, seems like there is something in the pond. Yu Qinghan spoke, pointing at something shiny in the center of the pond. Jiao Huai looked towards it, and sure enough, amidst the dense steam, there was a flickering red light. That should be the thing pointed out by the copper coin. Could it be, if he took this object, would it mean taking away the hot spring? He couldn't help but think about it. If he could set up a hot spring at home to soak in whenever he wanted, he would, of course, be willing to. Without any hesitation, Jiao Huai lunged forward to the edge where the red light source was found, discovering that it was a red spiritual stone of excellent quality. As he pulled it out with force, a burst of spiritual qi broke out. The energy originally accumulated in the pond instantly retracted, like a black hole, sucking all the energy into the red spiritual stone. The spiritual mist in front of him visibly disappeared. The moment Jiao Huai pulled out the red spiritual stone, a colorful light flashed into his mind. Unlike before, the 7 colors were brilliant, belonging to no particular destiny grade. A line of text appeared in his mind. Lucky opportunity, can upgrade a destiny of the mysterious grade. Seeing this line, Jiao Huai couldn't help but be surprised. Did he trigger some special condition again? Just like triggering misfortune into blessing when he received the heavenly destiny grade. If he chose to upgrade to a destiny of the mysterious grade, this would be a great improvement. He was understandably excited, but he had to suppress his emotion for the moment, till he got back home. Jiao Huai quickly returned to Yu Qinghan's side with the red spiritual stone. Yu Qinghan looked at the blood-red stone and thought it seemed familiar. This seems to be a heavenly bloody spiritual stone. Heavenly bloody spiritual stone? Yes, a heavenly bloody spiritual stone is a type of spiritual stone. Though rare, its value is equivalent to top-quality spiritual stone. In addition to serving as the core of the spirit-gathering formation, it also activates blood, enhances the activity of spiritual qi, and accelerates the speed of spiritual qi entering the cultivator's body, influenced by the thread of heavenly blood within the stone. Yu Qinghan explained in detail. Jiao Huai understood. No wonder, even being near it, I can feel the true vigor in my body gradually increasing. Yu Qinghan pondered. The development of a heavenly bloody spiritual stone generally requires strong origin energy, fermented over a long period. Could it be that someone has been here before? That doesn't matter anymore. We've got the treasure now, Jiao Huai said with a grin. Good job, silly bird, he praised the mina bird on his shoulder, feeding it a spiritual stone and stroking its little head. Yet, the moment he touched it, the mina bird's feathers ruffled up, effusively squawking. Knock you grandma! Knock you grandma! Jiao Huai's smile froze, fists clenching. Even if the bird wasn't his, he had picked it up. It only ever spoke nicely to Madame, and towards him, it cussed. Could he bear this?